Good evening, everyone. Welcome to another edition of the Gray Area here on the Black Man Unfiltered Network. I'm Mr. Bennett, joined by my partner, as always,
This is Sparta!
the Ghost of Sparta, aka Peter, aka Panayotis. Yasu, my brother, what is going on?
What is going on, Paul? How are you doing tonight?
I am doing well. I am doing well. I'm just looking. I'm just admiring. I guess the look. I know last night, if you went over to the Sparta HQ Network and you saw him there, he was wearing the black cowboy hat. I hear the music from Zorro playing when he puts it on. So again, we need some Zorro music at this point because he dons the hat. So he's got the cowboy hat. He's got the military hat tonight or whatnot. So I'm just thinking, what's going to be his? Every show should have a look. So we need a fire. We need a fireman's hat on. We need all kinds of different hats here, but looks good on you though. But
Well, thank
certainly,
you.
yeah. But certainly, we appreciate you guys certainly coming on to the gray area tonight on this Memorial Day weekend. So again, a lot of people. I'm sure you have a lot of activities up. In fact, we're going to talk about that a little bit tonight about Memorial Day and the things that are around us specifically in this country. But certainly, if you like the shows, certainly make sure you hit the like button certainly for here on the Black Man Unfiltered Network, and hop over to the Sparta HQ Network. Certainly, we're building a strong platform over there. Show some love. Just go over there. Really helps the algorithm when you do that. Also, any cash apps or super chats that you want to give to the channel, you see Black Men Unfiltered Cash App, or you can drop a super chat certainly to the channel. Tonight, and anything that you want to give to us personally, our super chats are scrolling at the bottom of the screen. And tonight, again, as we always do, this is our call-in show. So again, so in a few minutes, I'll drop the link. Anybody who wants to come up and chop it up with us, it could be based on a prior topic. So I know the last block that we did shows on taxes and nonprofit organizations. Last week we talked about online dating. Some guys in the chat certainly had some smoke for us regarding online dating. So again, anything that you agreed or disagreed with on that topic, you want to come up and chop it up with us and give us your feedback. Because again, we only do a call-in show once every fourth show is a call-in. So again, I know you guys be wanting to get at us during the show, but then we ask for you guys to come back. You guys never come back. So guys, like, send the link, drop the link. I need to get up here. So where are you guys when we drop the link? Bring the same smoke that you have for us that night, and let's talk about it. But the only thing we ask is, again, you got to keep it respectful. You got to show your face on screen, unless we know there's a few people who we give deference to on this show because of security or whatever. But for most people, we don't know you. You got to show your face. You can be on. You got to be cammed up when you're on the show. And any foul play or whatever, we block you, we delete you right away. We really don't trying to entertain any mess on the show tonight. But certainly, like I said, I'll drop the link in a few minutes, and people are free to come up and just be part of the conversation, or anything that you want to chop it up tonight. It's sort of free flowing tonight, but again, we may be touching on a Memorial Day a little bit tonight in the sort of in the empty space until people show up. But this is certainly your opportunity to be with us tonight. But Pete,
And if you're retired or active military, you want to put your 2 cents about today's topic, please. I encourage that more than ever.
absolutely. So yeah, man. So it's actually today's one of my I guess one of my favorite sports days of the year happened today. So again, I'm not a huge, I wouldn't say like a race car fan.
Okay,
Uh,
NASCAR.
I'm not a huge. I used to be back in the day, and people are going to kill me for this, but I was a bit of a Jeff Gordon fan. Now, Jeff Gordon, he's a bit
Same
of
here.
a controversial figure. You either like
City boy.
Jeff Gordon or you hated Jeff Gordon, because I think back then back before him and those guys in the early '90s, NASCAR was basically about tobacco and cigarettes and
Beer.
Confederate flags, and it was a very southern niche of a sport. And you certainly had people who, Jeff Gordon and I forget the other guy from California. These guys from California, Jeff's from California. There was another guy who also dominated for a while. He was from California, and they represented kind of a new breed. These weren't your Southern drawl. These weren't your Richard Petty or Cale
I think you
Yarborough
mentioned
type of.
about Kevin Hart.
What's that?
Is it Kevin Hart or something like that? I think it was.
No. Oh, and before I go on, I want to certainly give a shout out again. Kyle Busch who's again a known a multi-time champion race car driver. Yeah, Jimmy Johnson. Thank you, Anton,
That's what it is. Yep.
for being in the shout out to Anton for being in the in the chat tonight. But yes, Jimmy Johnson, Jeff Gordon, they redefined the sport in terms of marketing, in terms of PR, in terms of growing the brand, because again, it was a southern niche sport. You had a lot of cowboys and good old boys who were there, and they represented a new breed of drivers. So a lot of people didn't like them because they were too city, they weren't of the country, they weren't of the people, but they were handsome guys. Again, they weren't, dipping in skull and chewing tobacco and stuff like that. They were, Hollywood, Madison Avenue type of guys, and you had a lot of the fan base that didn't like it as a result of it. And NASCAR certainly has gone under iterations over the years. Certainly a couple years ago with the COVID and whatnot, and some of the things that happened, they got rid of Confederate flags. And apparently they dropped a lot of their fan base because you weren't allowed to bring Confederate flags to the racetracks anymore. So, but it's like I said, it was a niche sport. But Jeff Gordon was certainly at the forefront of that new wave, that new movement that came in, especially after certainly forget Dale Earnhardt. Unfortunately, he died in an incident. It was weird because everybody saw it live on TV. I think it was the Daytona 500.
It was the Daytona first race.
It was like the last lap where this happened, and so definitely it was a big blow to the sport when he had passed. And so again, they and NASCAR is kind of in a weird kind of place right now. I don't think you have but Kyle Busch, certainly the guy was only 41 years old. He died of an unknown illness. Wife, 2 kids, or whatnot. Very popular guy in the sport, and so again, that's going to be certainly a blow to NASCAR. He didn't die in the act of driving, but he had some sort of undisclosed illness, and he had passed away. So again, even today at the Indy 500, which is why I'm bringing this up, because that's really the only race that I actually get up for. I don't get up for. I'm not a big Formula One guy. I tried a couple years ago to watch because you had on the same day, you had the Formula One race at Monaco going on and the Indy 500 at the same day, and it's like night and day to me. I can't, it's too.
It is different.
It's like Formula One is like bumper cars. You know what I'm saying? It's too crowded. Like that race that I watched, they had a huge accident on lap 1 of the race. I mean, you had cars like literally piling up because of the aerodynamics of the cars that were flying up on each other, and the race was delayed at the start of the race, and this is being aired on TV. And the race is delayed for 2 hours while they clean stuff up. So, IndyCar, I've been a fan ever since I can remember, in the late 70s into the early 80s. Mario Andretti, Rick Mears, AJ Foyt, Johnny Rutherford. I mean, those were the guys that I grew up watching. And to this day, Mario Andretti is still my favorite race car driver. And I've just loved the event. The Indy 500, it's the fastest cars. I always loved the speed of it. And today, what was interesting about today was it was the closest finish in Indy 500 history today. I'm just going to show my screen. This is how close the race was. So by just over 2/100ths of a second was the end of the race. That's how close it was. And so again, Felix Rosenqvist, he's a Swedish driver. He beat out David Malukas, and he did everything to try to hold on. He literally passed him like within the last maybe 300 yards of the race, and finished it off. So again, very exciting ending of the race. And I love cars going at 230 miles an hour, which I'm a little bit disappointed at, because they were doing 230 miles an hour 30 years ago. But because of some safety issues or whatnot, they slowed the cars down. Now they're going to hybrid engines and whatnot. But growing up, the thing about the Indy 500 that was cool was that the pole speeds went up every year. I remember when the pole speed broke 200 miles an hour. And then it was go up 205, 210, 220. It got up into the mid-90s. I think the record still holds. Ari Luyendyk still has the record for the pole at 236 miles an hour. This year's pole was only at 232. So, again, with all the new technology and all these advances in the cars and everything, you would think the cars would go faster, but they're saying, look, we don't want cars going 300 miles an hour. But I got to admit, there's a part of me that says, yeah, I want to see cars going 300 miles an hour. But I get
So
the
it's
safety
funny you said
concerns,
this
so it's a
quote today.
balance. Yeah.
It's funny you opened this. So, first of all, I was a huge NASCAR fan myself back in the early 2000s. I remember '04 when Jeff Gordon won his championship. I bought a Jeff Gordon championship jacket because of that reason and a hat. I was a humongous fan. Over the years, I just grew out of it because you get into different interests. I still respect what they do. I've been to a couple races, the Pocono Raceway, not too far from where I live.
Close to you.
When I lived in Mount Pocono, it was like literally skip 15 minutes away from my house.
Mhm.
So I enjoyed going to. So the one year I went to the first race, I ended up getting pit passes. So you literally sit behind the pits and you watch them and everything. That's the year that last time I saw my buddy alive. And for years and years, I've been bugging him like, "Oh, dude, give me a hat, give me a hat, give me a hat."
Mhm.
Like, he knew I couldn't get in because of injuries and stuff like that. So what he did that year, I'm like, damn, I forgot about the hat again. He goes, I'm like, dude, this is like the 12 million time I was joking around with him. So what he does, he takes his hat off. This is the same hat he handed to me.
Mhm.
He takes his name badge off. He rips his
Mhm.
emblem off, and he hands it to me.
Mhm.
That's the last time I saw him alive.
Oh, wow.
This is why I felt it's appropriate to wear this hat tonight.
Yeah. Well, we're gonna touch on some of that tonight, and just have a discussion before we open up the call-in lines tonight. So again, call-in show tonight. So anybody who wants to be part of the conversation, we're gonna drop the link in a few minutes, and you can surely come up and be a part of it. But I want to kind of build a narrative here because I was talking about obviously the Indy 500, which again is my favorite race. In fact, that's the only kart race that I watch, because most of the kart races are road courses, and again, I just don't find road courses interesting. I like cars going really, really fast around the track and seeing the racing going on with those guys at those high speeds.
So you like the circular tracks better?
I like, ovals, super
Really?
ovals on top of that. Like I said, the Indy 500 is the fastest race in the world. The fastest. It's like there's no other, even on the short oval tracks that they go on, they don't go that fast. But they max out at the Indy 500, and you can feel that speed, especially, I mean, if you got the surround sound and whatnot. I mean, you can feel that speed. You got the 60, 70, 80-inch screen. You feel all that excitement there. And certainly that's definitely on my bucket list to not only go to the Indy 500, but I would actually, you may be surprised at this, that I would actually, they do have this thing you can sign up for, where you can sign up to go on a modified Indy car and go on a track. So you got a driver, you get in the back seat, and they don't go to the max, but they go at 180 miles an hour. And I think at Indy, I think it's like $200 if you want to sign up for that. But I would actually do that. To go around
similar up here. I think it's called NASCAR Experience or some shit like that. Pretty much you get in the NASCAR car. It's modified, obviously, with 2-seater versus 1-seater.
Correct.
And they go.
Right.
And I don't think they go all with the car maxed out.
Yeah.
But you're gonna have some fun in that car.
Yeah, you're gonna feel the G-force for sure, especially when you go in those turns. So so I would do that. If I ever get a chance to go to Indianapolis, that's probably the only reason I would go to Indianapolis, just to have that experience on that super speedway. Again, it's a historic track, and that's definitely, like I said, on my bucket list of things to do. I think that would be very thrilling to be in a car. And I know in 2028 they're supposed to be coming out with a new car and a new chassis and everything. So who knows what's gonna happen then, but the body type, the chassis that they've been using now, they've been using that since 2011 was the first season that they came out with that, the Dallara DW12, and they named it after Dan Weldon, who actually died. And again, another race that I saw live on TV, they were at a track in Vegas, and he died in a race, and he went airborne. He went, like, his car jumped over a car and flew like 100 feet in the air, upside down, and landed. And unfortunately, he hit past that, so they renamed the chassis DW12 after Dan Weldon had passed. But they're supposed to be coming out with a whole new body in 2028 is when it's supposed to drop.
So I just looked it up on the NASCAR Experience thing. So if you bring your own car, it's a little cheaper, obviously. You can
Bring your own car.
Yeah, it says bring your own car. It's 350, about 350, depends on the day you pick. It's for 2.5 miles. You allowed to drive it, and no speed limits. You can go as fast as you want. Now, if you have a driver, all right, it starts at 369, plus extra $50 for the weekends. And it goes up by how long you want. 20 minutes, it goes to a 599, and 40 minutes is over 1,000, and so on and so on. So you do have, it sounds like a pretty fun time, to be honest with you. I would drop literally, I'm not gonna lie, I would drop the $400 to just do for.
Yeah, I would. Like I said, I wouldn't mind it. Now my wife, no way she would ever do that, but I would definitely pay money for that experience. First of all, just to be in a car. I think they're like the coolest cars to be on. So that's one thing I would definitely do. Because of that. Because I just like the spacey look, the high tech looking cars or whatever. I would be a part of it. But I think BMU, I think is busy in the chat, so we just dropped the link in the chat. So if people want to come up on the show, certainly the link's been dropped. I may drop it again, like I said, in a few minutes. But anybody wants to come on and chop it up with us, certainly you're free to do so. But I want to kind of continue now. Like I kind of started with the Indy 500, but I was kind of going somewhere with it. So yes, it's my favorite race, and it's the only race that I will actually save time for. And it's cool now that they're doing it live. Back when I was growing up, they never had the race live. It was always aired Sunday night as part of Sunday night programming on ABC. They had it for years. And so, but back then you didn't have the internet. So again, you could avoid, they may announce it like on a TV show or in a newspaper or something like that, who won. But if you didn't want to find out who won, if you wanted the experience of watching it live, then yeah, you just avoid the papers on Sunday and you would just watch it. It was primetime TV for ABC for like 25, 30 years, at least when I was growing up. So again, but it's one of the few sports that I will actually stay up for and watch the entire event. But I was kind of going somewhere with it that, obviously it is Memorial Day weekend, and we're talking, certainly, obviously they do it big there. They have they play taps, they do the military color guard, and the guys line up and they, with the rifles and everything, they do the salutes and everything. They do the flyovers with the experience. Actually, do you know that we pay for flyovers?
We do. I know that.
Yeah. In fact, I was just watching. I just was doing a little research on it. That again. So again, this is just about the Super Bowl. But again, as far as the cost of a flyover, so this is a Super Bowl, but it could be almost any event. $80,000 for gas and operational expenses, and this basically comes out of a taxpayer budget. It's part of the training budget for the military, and they also treat this as a training exercise. But that comes out of that. And here it says that the Defense Department receives more than 1,000 requests for flyover at sporting events every year. The Thunderbirds and other teams may accept them, including NASCAR races and important baseball games. The NFL uses them, obviously, for the Super Bowl, but even regular season games. So this seems to be just a big part of, what we do as a nation. We like to sort of brandish, our military in these even sporting events. So the marriage of military and sports, when it comes to these events, what's your take on that? I've never seen one live. I've never, been to it. I've never seen it. And sometimes it could be, like I said, it could be the Thunderbirds, which is like the elites. But then I've seen some that do like choppers. I see one where they had like a B-1 bomber fly over. So I've seen different, types of aircraft used, and other countries may do them, but not necessarily with the military. Like I know in the Middle East, they may have like Emirates Airlines flyovers or things like that, but they're not taking F-16s or F-15 fighter craft and going over stadiums or whatnot with these things. And sometimes they'll even do them in dome stadiums where you can't see it, but they'll show it on TV that they're flying over, but you wouldn't know it because you're indoors.
Yeah.
And so, but what's your thought on this altogether? This sort of marriage of sports, military, and just this kind of marriage to it. I mean, they got the chaplain there. He'll say the prayer before the race. He'll talk about the military, honoring the vets and everything. They play taps. The guys fly over and all that. It sometimes to me it kind of feels like trying to find a very respectful word for it, but it's kind of like you're kind of grabbing your crotch a little bit. It just feels a little brandish that way. But before we go on, yeah, like I said, people can certainly differ on that and so get yours, but let's also get a military guy up here. We're all over the show, so we got our guy Anton certainly here on the show tonight. Good to have you up. But it just sometimes it's like, and people certainly have commentary on, again, especially since we're paying for this. So I would think like the NFL or whoever is doing this, they're fitting the bill for the event, and probably the people who are attending the event are paying for it. But no, it's actually the taxpayers who are doing these things. It's like, when we talk about we can't have certain and I don't want to get this political, but we talk about not having money to do certain things. But if you're talking about 1,000 requests for flyovers at a cost of about $80,000 per, do the math. And is this really a thing that we, should be doing, especially in light of something like today where, we're supposed to be honoring fallen, and that's going to be another segment that we'll get into. We're supposed to be honoring fallen vets and, those who serve in the military. But what are your thoughts on it?
So personally, I think it is actually a great way to show our military what they do. It takes a lot of skill and a lot of training. It doesn't just put the uniform on, throw the helmet on, and fly. No, it takes a lot of skill. I saw 2 flyovers in my experience. I can't really say 2 flyovers. Let me rephrase that. The first flyover I saw was at the Pocono 500 when I said my buddy gave me his hat. The second one I saw, it was in Wilkes-Barre. It was an air show. The F-22 was doing a demonstration. That was still early 2000s when the F-22 just got released to the public. And like people were saying, "What the hell is this goddamn thing? It looks like a spaceship almost." I thought it was fucking cool. I love the thing. And I go, the F-14 Tomcat was my favorite plane. Now the F-22 is my favorite plane. But I was literally seeing him doing stuff like, what the fuck? I was going to myself. And I was able to actually speak to the pilot afterwards a little bit. And he goes, listen, I'll be honest, I can't tell you exactly how this works. I know as a pilot because I need to know how my plane works. But what I can tell you, this thing's full of so much G's, it will literally rip the white off your skin. And this is why we don't push the plane to the maximum. We only push about 2 to 3% in a combat dogfight. If you catch the F-22, because of how stealthy it is, you usually don't go to dogfight. They usually, take you out before that even happens. But I think it's a great way to demonstrate to our enemies, like, listen, fuck with us, and this is what you're gonna regret. I think it's a warning to everybody else.
Mm-hmm.
That's my personal.
But is it a warning or is it brandishing? I think it's a distinction. It's like I said, it's kind of like you're kind of grabbing your crotch. It's kind of it's a show. So we got a military guy here, so again, you can moderate between us.
I totally get what you're saying, Paul. People say it's flexing muscle in the way it is, and also it's showing to the tax dollars the toys you get to work and play with. So that's basically what it is. The one group you were talking about, the Thunderbirds, that's the U.S. Air Force flight demonstration team.
Yeah.
The Blue Angels is the U.S. Navy's flight demonstration team, and you do have some Marine pilots that do fly for the Blue Angels as well. Then you also have a lot of the skydiving teams, like the Army has both the Golden Knights and the Red Daggers. The Navy have the Frogmen. They're basically Navy SEALs that are jump qualified.
Yeah.
Basically, just a lot of these groups are just to show people what, the many capabilities the military has at their disposal. Little things like that. It's also used as recruiting tools, yes, so on and so forth. Now, back to the thing you guys were talking about with NASCAR. All right, yeah, Jeff Gordon, Jimmy Johnson, they were the new faces of the sport. A lot of other drivers, too, were Tony Stewart, Brad Keselowski,
Yep.
Ryan Newman, Carl Edwards, the Bush brothers.
Bushes, yeah.
Yeah, the Bush brothers, both Kurt and Kyle. Rest in peace, Rowdy. Martin Truex Jr., Joey Logano. A lot of these guys came from places most people never would expect you to find drivers.
California.
The Bush brothers were from Vegas. That's why every time Kyle Busch won, he would do a showman's bow. That was the way to say, hey, I'm from Vegas. We love the bright lights, so on and so forth. Joey Logano's from Connecticut. Martin Truex Jr. is from New Jersey. I believe, if I remember, Brad Keselowski is from Michigan. Carl Edwards, when he was racing, is from Missouri. It was basically what it was, and a lot of traditional fans didn't like was NASCAR started to spread that net and start bringing drivers in from different locations from different parts of the country, and was showing people, hey, you got a lot of people who from different parts of the country who aren't from the Carolinas, who aren't from Georgia, who aren't from Alabama, who love the sport as well, who love auto racing. Right. And the one thing that helped was the movie Days of Thunder. And I think that's what opened up people's eyes about the sport of NASCAR. And I think will also help NASCAR gain popularity even more, and people forget about this, was the split between CART and the IRL, the Indy Racing League. You had two different open wheel series, and they went their separate ways.
They hurt each other in doing that. So
it did. And what happened was the IRL only wanted to focus on ovals. CART focused on the ovals, the road courses, and the temporary street tracks as well. Remember, what made CART known was racing in certain cities. Long Beach, Miami, Vancouver, Toronto, Belle Isle, and Detroit. That was one of the things that helped CART as well. Eventually, after the legal stuff and so on and so forth, they finally decided to get back together. The Champ Car Series ended their series, and it basically just phased into the IRL, into basically what's Indy now. It was long overdue. I felt like they never should have went their separate ways. Right, I was a big fan of CART. I didn't like the fact about how the IRL got started, so I was frustrated with that. That's how I kind of got into NASCAR, because of the split. Right. And I also got into F1 because of it. Right. So I've always been like a big racing fan because of that.
It's almost like I'm on the opposite side. Because I'm such a fan of ovals, I stayed with Indy. I stayed with the Indy league, because what was happening, just like with F1, the cost of an F1 car is like 10 times the cost of an Indy car. And CART, because they were doing all kinds of stuff. Like I said, the speed records that were broken back then, Ari Londike, he broke that 30 years ago, and it still stands. It's still the fastest 236 mile an hour 4-lap average. 237 miles an hour, 1-lap average. They were doing a lot of exotic stuff with their cars, but it was getting too expensive. And so I think what IndyCar or IRL was looking for was like a standard, like you shouldn't have to be spending $10 million on a car, and no car should be no more than like $1 million, $750,000, I think was the basic chassis and everything. And but you see in F1 now, those cars are ridiculously priced. Yeah, but I don't find the racing entertaining, because, like I said, it's almost like you're in a bumper car race. It's
not really.
You can't feel the speed of the cars because they're so dumb.
Honestly, F1 cars actually go faster. Most people don't realize this. F1 cars actually move faster than the Indy cars. F1 cars are basically
not in an open wheel. Not an open wheel. I think they max out about 220 or so, but not on an open wheel. Like I've seen several videos on that and whatnot. They don't go fast, but certainly they're faster on road courses because, again, the acceleration and whatnot. They also have, they have a lot of advantages on road courses. They're made for road courses. Indy car is kind of like the car isn't specialized for one thing. You put a different aero kit on, and they're able to operate on road and open wheel. But again, I still don't feel that speed because of the congestion of the event. Like I said, it's a taste thing for me, but I certainly understood the reason why. Look, we got to keep these costs under control, because what's going to happen, just like you got now, the Penske's in CART, when CART split off, it was the Penske's. They were like 1, 2, and 3. All you saw was that Marlboro car in every race. Mm-hmm. It was like it wasn't competitive because they had so much more money than anybody else. So I can understand why if you want to be about racing, who's the best driver, not who has the best tech or the best money or the best car. Then, but again, some people like that as well. Like the old days of NASCAR, it was about who had the best car, because you took a street car, you souped it up as fast as you can get it, and you put on the race cars. But even they went after the Dale Earnhardt death. They went to the Car Tomorrow, and now you have the standard chassis.
That wasn't a fun song.
But it doesn't look like a road car anymore. But again, safety, and they want, they certainly want it. But back then, in the 70s and in the early 80s, you saw any kind of car, Fords, Chevys, Chrysler, you named it, all these different
Oldsmobiles, Pontiacs. Yeah, I remember. All
those cars. They were just souped up, and it was meant to sell cars. It was meant to sell production cars. So again, if a Ford won a NASCAR race, you went to a Ford dealership and you wanted that car.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
Yep. And the real sad part about what happened to Dale Earnhardt in Daytona back in 2001, it forced NASCAR. Oh, Le Mans is 24 hours. That's an endurance race, Eric.
Yeah, but who's watching it? That's the thing. Like the cars, I would say about Le Mans, the cars, especially growing up, the cars were cool. Like especially if you had like Matchbox cars,
right?
Those toy cars or whatnot. They had some very cool looking cars. But who's going to? First of all, nobody covered it. At least not in the U.S. You didn't have any U.S. networks that covered Le Mans races. And again, especially 24 hours of Le Mans, who's staying up to watch a lot of that? So I don't think
I do get that point, Paul. But I will back up Anton. The F1 from last time I remember, when I was into the gearhead stuff really bad, they were using jet engines in the F-150, the F1 series. And they were flying those cars. Yeah,
so, they go very fast. And the thing was,
that's the only one that does track that also races in the rain. Now, I don't think Indy and NASCAR does not do it.
No, NASCAR is actually racing in the rain now because if you notice, they're starting to have windshield wipers and they actually have brake lights set up on the top of the rear windshield for when you see them brake, you actually will see the light come on. So they actually will race sometimes. It's something new that they're starting to do. But the reason why F1 could do it is because they have tires made for that. They have 3 different types of tires people don't realize. They have the soft ones, they have the mediums, and they have the hards. And they do have wet tires as well that they will use in a race during the rain. And then once it starts to dry off, then they'll go into the paddocks, switch their tires out, and go back and run the race as well. But back to what I was saying about NASCAR, the real sad part about Dale Earnhardt's death back in 2001, it forced NASCAR to make a rule change that the IRL and F1 was already doing. It's called the Hans device, the head and neck stabilizer, that little flap that you see on the back of the driver's heads.
Yeah.
F1 mandated it. IndyCar mandated it. CART mandated it. Even NHRA mandated it.
And if I recall, what you said mandated, because the device was available. And I was just watching something recently on that. Dale wouldn't wear it.
Exactly. Also, he had the open. He was still one of the few drivers that still wore an open helmet. He wore one. I remember Richard Petty wore one when he was racing. Kel Yarborough. I think Darrell Waltrip at one point as well.
Please correct me if I'm wrong. And when the Hans device came in, they also changed the rule of the helmet. You had to wear a full helmet.
Full helmet after that as well.
Hit his helmet head. They think when that face was open, that just did him right there.
Unfortunately, that's what happened.
He cracked the skull. It was
the trauma of the cracking of the skull, and I don't want to sound insensitive because I respected those drivers. He basically ate his steering wheel.
Yeah,
that's fact. Unfortunately, I hate to say that, but it is fact.
Contact with the wall, because the Hans device, what it does is you're going to keep going, but it's going to restrict the movement of your head. You might feel a little bit sting in your neck, but your head's not going to keep going forward with all that momentum. And I remember after what happened after that, Sterling Marlin, the other driver that was involved in that crash, he received death threats from a lot of fans because they felt like he was the cause of Earnhardt's death, Dale Jr. literally had to come out and say, lay off him. He literally had to tell those fans, lay off of him. It's racing. These things happen, unfortunately.
Mm-hmm.
And the messed up part, a lot of fans that were at Daytona 500 knew this was serious. So they were running to the shop, to his, I guess shop, whatever it's called, getting whatever they could grab. People were literally ripping the grass off just to have something of his last memory. And it was incredible. Like, not even good.
Right. Earnhardt was the last of the traditional good old boys that raced because Richard Petty already retired, Kelly Yarborough already retired, Bobby Allison was retired. Sadly, he lost his son Davey, who was also racing. Earnhardt was the last of those old school drivers because people don't realize back in the day, NASCAR, they were bootleggers.
That's
they
right.
Used to drive they were bootleggers during Prohibition. Drive their souped up cars, bootlegging, and then on Sundays they would challenge each other to see who had a real good car. And a lot of those guys that helped lay the foundation, guys like Cuckoo Marlin, Sterling Marlin's father, Lee Petty, Richard Petty's father, Kyle Petty's grandfather, Junior Johnson, Tim Flock, Wendell Scott. Those guys helped lay the foundation of NASCAR.
See, where I think the sport really went downhill for me personally is when the 1 year they changed the point system. So now you don't need to win a race anymore to win.
Yeah. That I've never been a fan of.
Yeah. That hurt a lot of people. A lot of people were angry because they felt like you had to win a race in order to get into the playoffs.
Yeah.
If you won at least one race, that puts you in. And people were okay with that if you won. But then you had drivers who found a way to finish in the top 5, top 10.
Yeah.
They never won a race, but because
winning titles without winning a race, and that just fundamentally that just doesn't seem fair or doesn't seem meritorious when you don't have to win a race in order to get into a final or what have you. But it's interesting, Anton, you mentioned Days of Thunder. That movie certainly did a lot for it. But then but it's interesting what didn't. It was, even though it was a popular movie franchise, I don't know if it expanded the base because, again, you saw this decline. The Cars movies, right? The animated Cars movies, which were very popular with the kids and everything. And they did big box office. But again, this was around time. I think the first Cars movie came out in 2006. But again, the Car Tomorrow came out about 2007, I believe, the first one.
Yeah.
And it didn't do anything to bring new fans into the sport. And like
a lot of people were not a fan of the Car Tomorrow because it took away the unique characteristics of each car. You knew that's a Ford, that's a Dodge, that's a Chevy, that's a Toyota. You just knew the way it was designed, the way it was shaped. And what they did was they basically gave each model the same contour and just set it up different on the outside, but they all look the same. They got rid of it, and now the newer cars you see and the next gen that they're driving, you still see some, like, even though it's a lot better and safer, it still does have those unique characteristics that shows, okay, you know that's a Ford, you know that's a Chevy, you know that's a Toyota. And speaking of that, one manufacturer that a lot of people have been talking about and I'm hoping that comes back to NASCAR, and I'm hoping they come back to, is Dodge. And there've been talks and there've been rumors that Stellantis, I think 2012, 2013.
I didn't know that Dodge got out.
Can you hear me now?
I wasn't a fan.
Right now, it's basically it's Honda and what, Chevy?
No, it's still Toyota. It's Toyota, Chevy. It's Toyota, Chevy, and
that's
Ford.
The thing about it also. But, it's not even, you got this American car race with Japanese automakers.
That's what I was going to say this now, Paul. I'm sorry to cut you off, but I was never a fan when they brought in Toyota in, because Toyota was not an American company. The point of NASCAR is the American sport, the American race. So I never understood why the hell they brought in Toyota. Oh, it's built in America. Fuck you. A lot of shit is built in America. That means I had to bring it to my fucking house.
But that's, honestly, again, you're always making that deal. It's the money. like I said, if Ford's not going to be in, if Dodge and all these American, and also keep in mind, we did have that we had that the bailouts for the automakers back in the early 2000s.
So again, I think 2007, 2008.
You're right. So a lot of those companies, it's like, look, we can't be putting millions and millions of dollars. We're asking the government for a bailout. We can't afford to be putting all this money into NASCAR. The advertising, the car teams, that was a luxury.
People don't realize
it didn't yield the result because, like I said earlier, the purpose of why a lot of these guys got in, it was to sell American cars.
People don't realize how much it costs to be a primary sponsor for a NASCAR team. For your company to be the primary sponsor for a NASCAR team, and I learned this from my previous job, around between $13 to $15 million.
There's a lot of money behind that.
Yeah, to be a primary car. And from my previous employer, FedEx, now one of the cool things I did get to meet Denny Hamlin. I had 2 autographed helmets from him. He's a really cool guy. Skinnier than I expected, but he's a real cool guy.
Yeah.
FedEx
you can't be a big NASCAR driver. In race cars in general, anything that adds weight to the cars, I don't think you're gonna have any 300-pound NASCAR
company. Yeah,
very short, like my height.
Actually, no. Actually, Denny Hamlin's kind of tall. He's pretty tall.
Mm.
He's a little tall. Yeah, he's a little taller than I expected. Really.
Yeah.
But
he might still
you have to put in a significant amount of money.
Yeah.
You got to put in a significant amount of money for how much it costs to be the primary sponsor. And then, of course, you have various designs and different color schemes for different places. And the thing most people don't realize that this is how you pay. And I know I watch NASCAR. They have 2 different types of cars with the gas tanks on different sides. Most of the gas tanks we always see are on the left side. The only time you see the gas tank on the right side of the car is when they race at Watkins Glen. Because the way pit row is oriented.
Right.
They got to go to the right. Most tracks, they got to go to the left. Watkins Glen, they got to go to the right. And the gas tank's on the right side. That's one of the only tracks that they drive on where the gas tank is on the right side. Everything else on the ovals, the super speedways, and even on some of the road courses like the Brickyard, they've driven there. They've driven on the Charlotte Oval, all known as the Roval. Circuit of the Americas in Austin, Sonoma in California. All the times, gas tanks on the left side.
Yeah.
Which track
but
is it?
Watkins Glen?
Track that was, they actually had 2 different pits because they had split it. One was like further out and one was that. I can't remember which one it was.
I think it's Bristol.
Yeah, they called it
Bristol. They had 2.
One of them.
Because what it is, it's called the Coliseum. It's called the Bull Ring for a reason because it's high banks, short track. It's a very high bank. Not really all that much go around, but because the way the track is built, they got pit stops on 2 different sides of the track for that reason.
And it's interesting.
And then of course,
high banks because that's also one of the reasons why. Because again, in IndyCar open wheel. Really, the Indy 500, that's the only super speedway. Now, there are other super speedways. You got Talladega, and what I mean by super speedway, it's got to be a minimum, I think, 1.5 miles at minimum for it to be considered a super speedway. But because especially Daytona, they actually, back in the 60s, they ran races there. But the problem is the banks at Daytona are like 30 degrees or something like that. And just
I think between 30 and 33 degrees.
Yeah, they fly off. Like, it's too dangerous to run these Indy cars, even though they got ground effects and everything. When the cars like this on Daytona, it's just too dangerous. So they stopped running there. Indianapolis is basically the oval, and it's not really. It's almost like a rectangle, but it's flat. But that's the reason why they don't run at Talladega or Daytona, even though they're
or Texas as well. Or Texas, Indy had to take Texas off because they were going too fast.
Yeah,
I think they were averaging around between 230. Like they were lapping anywhere between 230 to 235, but because the banks were so high and you had that much space, it was hard to maintain control. Yeah. And every time you saw practice, going into the wall, because it was hard to maintain the stability because of the track.
Yeah.
They were talking about in Pocono Raceway here, they're going to bring Indy up here, but I don't know if that ever happened or not because I kind of felt out of the sport.
I mean, Pocono, I think, used to be on the Indy circuit.
I
It's like
think
I said,
so,
they
yeah.
really constricted a lot of the. I think they're going more to the open road courses, the temporary road courses, and whatnot. So I think they've just kind of moved off. I think you only have two or three ovals on the entire Indy's. On Indy circuit. So again, but to me, as a fan of ovals, that's a disappointment. I know why they're doing it, but it's still a disappointment because again, that's why the Indy 500. Like I said, it's the only race that I get up for. But I want to.
And I think
No,
and I think the reason why they took off.
back to the thing we were talking about.
Okay, I'll make it real quick. Shockingly, I think they did take it off, but surprisingly, the Andretti family live in Pennsylvania. I think they live in Nazareth.
Yeah,
and I think Michael Andretti and his team are based in the Pocono area too. Andretti Green Racing, I think, is based out of Nazareth, Pennsylvania.
Right.
So it would be good to see IndyCar back in that area.
For sure.
All right.
But I want to move the combo back to, so again, we since it is Memorial Day weekend, I wanted to touch on that. So again, like I said, with the IndyCar, the race is very ceremonial. They do the prayer, they do taps, they do the flyover, and it's honoring the vets and everything. But it has Memorial Day, just like almost every other holiday. Has it gotten so commercialized that we simply forget what it's supposed to be for? Now, again, you may have an issue overall with military in general, especially and let's face it, America's military performance since World War II, at least in the minds of the public, hasn't been great since World War II. Korea was basically a standoff. We all know about Vietnam, Afghanistan, Iraq, and now possibly with Iran. We all know these things are going on. And so, again, in public sentiment, when it comes, I think, to military, maybe changing a bit. And certainly our tolerance for death has changed. You're talking about the racing, right? In the 50s and 60s, you were going to have a death every weekend. It was just part of the sport. Now it's like, and again, the last major, I mean, we've had some deaths, but again, the Dan Weldon death, and again, I remember seeing that race live. That changed a lot of things. Our tolerance for death when it comes to military has drastically reduced. I mean, we think in Iraq was 3,000, roughly roundabout. I don't want to, disrespect anybody, but it was around 3,000. That's the number. But again, Vietnam, 50,000, 60,000. And so we don't have the stomach for war the way we used to, or the casualties. In fact, and even just with this recent incursion in Iran, they're talking about 13. Now, whether that number is accurate or not, whatever's coming out of the Department of War, we can debate that. But the idea of what are we willing to tolerate? And then when it comes to honoring people on a Memorial Day, I was looking at this article before we got on. Memorial Day, again, is supposed to be a day of remembrance, not celebration. But have we turned Memorial Day into a celebration? Like I said, the flyovers and the brandishing. It feels like brandishing of our military forces or whatnot. Look how big and bad we are. But we harmonize. Like I said here, so to many Americans, they don't know the difference between Memorial Day, Labor Day, and Veterans Day. And especially with the marketing of it, I mean, obviously, it's Memorial Day for all intents and purposes is basically the start of summer. So everybody starts, the beaches open up, and the weather's not going to be that favorable this weekend. And it's been raining all weekend in our area, but it's the beaches fill up. All the businesses get going. You get inundated with Memorial Day sales ads, So it just became a big commercial. But just like any holiday, just like Christmas, I mean, Christmas is for the most part secular as a holiday. We don't honor it, at least, certainly for believers, in the same way we try, to honor it. But for all intents and purposes, it's a secular holiday in the U.S. And even with Memorial Day, again, we may remember for a minute. The ceremony at the Indy 500 today was for like 2 minutes. and then we kind of go on with things. But are we asking questions about is what a lot of these soldiers who died in service, which again, that's what it was for. Are we really considering these things when it comes to military decisions? And who knows? And again, I'm not trying to get overly political, but again, we don't know what's going to happen if we got to put boots on the ground in Iran. Our soldiers, for all of the pomp and circumstance that we put on them in the last 80 years, have we been putting our soldiers in the best position to be successful? And are we just bleeding treasure and money for all our ships and planes and weapons and whatnot and loss of lives? Has Memorial Day has kind of like a stink. I know some people it's uncomfortable to talk about, but it doesn't feel like we're necessarily honoring our vets or certainly those who died in service, because we're asking, well, why were they there in the first place? Vietnam was definitely so. So that's kind of like what's on the table. And again, this is our call-in show. So anybody who wants to come up, certainly on the show, the link is in the chat. In fact, I'll drop it again. You can certainly come up and join the conversation if you want to. But yeah, what are your thoughts on Memorial Day in general? Is just marketing at this point? Does it really mean anything anymore? The way some people used to honor it. We have our parades in town where they do fireworks and all this kind of stuff. Is it supposed to be about that, or should it be a much more solemn celebration, or not even a celebration at all, a day of remembrance, more so than celebration? So I'll start with Pete, give you your thoughts, and then Anton, and then anybody who wants to come up and be part of the conversation. I'll drop the link again in the chat. And again, Karen must be on. And if you want to give your 2 cents on the subject, any military people who might be in the chat, if you want to come up and give your opinion on it, how do you feel when it comes to Memorial Day? Do you feel it's honoring of those who passed in the theater of war? So Pete, your thoughts, and then Anton.
So I'm going to answer this 2 different ways right now. The first one is, I think, is marketing right now. It's all a business. So like I said, summer starts, people are getting their bathing suits on. The summer bars are open up. The Georgia Shores open up. All this stuff. All right, it become a business, and it's not supposed to be like that. And I am disgusted here to see that, because I did lose a friend in combat, my best friend. So to me, it should be a day to remember. And I have to ask this, younger people, do you know what the day stands for? Yeah. Barbecue. Summer starts out of school, and they don't even know what it means. And when they have a family member, let's say their uncle or their cousins or somebody who died, that's when it starts meaning, oh, it actually means more than that. Like a buddy of mine named his son after his fallen brother. And his son didn't care. He don't want to play video games. I'm not saying I don't want to go there. And he finally told him the whole story. Your uncle took the bullet for me. And then all of a sudden you see the waterworks happening. They don't know what it means. They don't. They're not educated, probably. 2, they probably don't give a shit. And 3, they think it's just a day for most people to be off. For us who work, we get a day of pay to stay home. All this stuff. It's not about that. It's about remembering how many people have lost their lives for us to be able to do what we do right now, to have a burger, to go smoke a cigar with a friend, to have a beer. Too many. They have paid the ultimate sacrifice, like they say.
Anton?
It's ever since I joined the Army, it meant a lot more. It meant a lot more. And I kind of realized that, and I learned that when actually around this time, 30 years ago, I was in Fort Jackson going through reception to go out before I started basic training. And it's about honoring your fallen comrades. It's about, for a lot of us, getting together, sharing stories about friends of ours who sadly paid that price. One of the things, I got a friend who was a member of the old guard. He was a team sentry at Arlington. And he told me something, one of the coolest things that they do, and they do this twice a year on Memorial Day and on Veterans Day. Usually around the weekend, around this time over the weekend, not just the Army, but all the other branches that are stationed in around Washington, the Marine Corps Silent Drill Team, everyone, they all do something called flagging. They all get flags. They go to each grave at Arlington. They plant a flag. They salute the fallen, and they go to the next grave. So if you go to Arlington right now, as we speak, every grave, every headstone is going to have an American flag in front of it.
Mm.
One of the things that they do something called a silent run. Now, Peter, you probably already heard this from CQ and everyone else. Usually when we run and do PT, we sing cadence as a way to motivate us and everything else. They don't sing cadence. When they run the grounds at Arlington, they run in dead silence. And he said it's one of the most powerful moments he's ever done. And I'm trying not to get emotional now realizing it, but I tell people this. Me going into the Army was the best decision I ever made. And the one thing I learned is when you take that oath and you sign your name on that dotted line, the life you live is no longer your own. It's not about you. And that's the thing a lot of people don't realize. You value the life of your buddies at the same level you value your own life. Your job is to make sure they get home to their families. Their job is to make sure you get home to your family. And people don't realize how powerful that is. Now, if you don't agree with the politics and politicians and everything else, that's cool. That is cool. I don't knock people for that. But we see the side of things most people don't see. And that's what makes it different. It's to honor our fallen brothers and sisters. It's to share stories about them when we train with them, when we serve with them, and everything else. And like Peter said, if you have a son or a daughter named after a friend of yours that you served with, you tell the child the reason how they got their name and why they have that name.
Mm-hmm.
People don't realize, like people just don't realize that. It's that deep.
You're kind of breaking up a bit, Anton.
Yeah, he froze completely.
About that.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry about that.
Yeah, you're freezing up. Yeah.
Oh, sorry about that. I don't have Wi-Fi where I'm at. I'm at work. That's why. It just carries that. It's just different.
Yeah.
It carries more significance. It carries more importance. You know, that's basically what it is. It's for us. It's just we salute our fallen brothers and sisters. We let them know that we love them. We let them know we'll never forget them. And usually, and something that I've started doing it, and a lot of service members do it. Usually, we always just say these two words: "Till Valhalla." And for anyone that's familiar with Norse mythology, Valhalla is seen as paradise in Norse mythology for those Vikings who die in battle.
Well, it's interesting you say that because, and again, not trying to get political here, but I know our FBI director, I think Kash Patel, he used that phrase and I forget who it. I think it was when Charlie Kirk got deleted, and he used it. And people weren't happy because again, he never served and neither did Charlie.
Yeah.
And is
That's
that
a
part of the issue? Is that you have a lot of people who are not in that club. You didn't pay the price to be there, but yet you want to surround yourself with the militarism and patriotism and all these things that are getting mixed together, and people aren't, they're not, they don't appreciate it.
no,
But
they
it
don't.
sounds good, but even at events, like I said, like at the IndyCar event and in these events. Now, again, after that celebration, after the prayer, the salutes, the presenting of the color guard, the flyover, all these people started chanting USA, USA, USA. But are you really about that? To be spouting that? And I'll even introduce another question. This is one of the reasons. Now, again, I am not a war guy, or at least I wouldn't say I'm a pacifist, but I certainly I think there need to be more legitimate reasons as to why we do things. I do worry about the military industrial complex and all that's involved there, but at the same time, I am a little bit in favor of a draft. I am, or at least like in other countries, like Peter, you're from Greece. Military service is mandatory in Greece. Now you put your year
A
or
lot
two
of
in.
places.
How long you have to be in there, Pete?
4 years, I believe.
4? Okay.
4
Okay.
year. Yeah, not counting your boot camp either.
Yeah, but I'm kind of a fan of it because I think the reason why I think we've lost perspective is because, again, you're at your cookouts with your hamburgers and hot dogs. You put your American flags up and you have your parades and waving little American flags. But I think for a lot of Americans, we don't understand what the price of war is or the decisions that we make that put soldiers in harm's way to begin with. It's a like I said, it's a celebration of America. It's this kind of patriotic kind of thing where we start waving our flags like, yeah, we're so cool. But you haven't been there. So again, shouldn't we, if you had to be drafted or at least serve at least a year? So out of high school, you got to put 1 year in boot camp. 1 year. I think it'll do you a world of good. Because for a lot of these kids coming out today, no discipline, no appreciation for work, no physically not strong. I mean, we've all seen those high school videos in the 60s. We got these kids like what gym class used to look like in the 60s. And the reason it was is because more than likely you were going to go into a draft. And so they wanted fit high schoolers because these were going to be your pipeline into the military. And I think I wouldn't mind having some sort of mandatory service so at least you can have somewhat of appreciation. But you got all these guys at the IndyCar, at the Indy 500, never saved a day in their lives, drinking their Budweiser, pot bellies out here, shirtless. You got no idea. But you want to say USA, USA, USA. And I'm saying to myself, it's like, so yeah, we're trivializing. But if you really had to be about that life, or you were like, oh, I got to be a part of this, then maybe you wouldn't be so flippant. But it just feels like today, and like the article was saying, most people get veterans. If you ask a young person today, what's the difference between Veterans Day and Memorial Day? More times than not, they can't tell you. So that's kind of my rant of the night. But what do you feel about the draft? Since you volunteered and went on your own, I know you said it's the best thing for you. But what is your view of a draft? Should you do, or if not a draft, then at least mandatory service? You put a year in, you turn 18 before you go to college or anything else. Or you're in college, you do some sort of ROTC or something like that, or whatever whatever something. You gotta invest a part of your life into the defense of the country that you go around at your barbecues and whatnot talking about your patriot. Now we got this guy Jack Muliano in the back. Jack, again, if you want to come on, camera must be on. We got to see your face before you come up. And again. Okay, so thanks for playing. But your views on that. on the draft, or just what I'm saying?
Honestly, I'm definitely a fan of military service for at least 3 years. I'll say
3.
3 years. From the day you turn 18 and you finish when you turn 21. I feel like it definitely will help people in ways they never thought. I remember this one situation that happened between me and my wife. Her brother joined the Marine Corps. And I remember he came to me and he was thinking about joining the military. And I said, I gave him the good, the bad, the ugly. Whatever you choose, that's up to you. Now he volunteered. He went and chose to join the Marine Corps. I was hoping he would join the Army, but that's a different story. My wife was not happy. She was like, he went to enlist. I was like, yeah, he told me. And you were okay with this? Yeah, why not? And I remember she said something to me that really set me off. And she said, well, why did you you should have told him not to join? And I told her, dead to rights in her face. I said, I gave Uncle Sam 11 years of my life, and it made me become the person that I am now. I am never going to tell someone not to join. Me telling someone to join is like me not breathing. That ain't never going to happen. I am never going to tell a person, don't join the military. I'm going to say this. Just understand, when you take that oath and you put your name on that dotted line, understand what you're getting yourself into. Whether you're going to Lackland Air Force Base, whether you're going down to Cape May, you're going up to Great Mistakes or Navy Station Great Lakes, or you're going to any of those Army bases, whether it's Fort Jackson, a.k.a. Relaxing Jackson, Fort Leonard Wood, a.k.a. Fort Lost in the Woods, Fort Benning, or Fort Sill, or you're going out to Paris Island, or Camp Pendleton to stand in those yellow footprints, understand what you're getting yourself into. Because the minute that happens, that's point of no return. Plain and simple. And I'm always going to tell someone that. And I'm never going to tell them not to join. Because me telling them not to join could have who knows what type of circumstances and how that could turn their direction in their life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and
I don't mind. Yeah.
For me, my parents were not fans when I first enlisted. My parents were mad at me to where they did not speak to me in English for a good period of time. That's how mad they were.
Let me ask you a question on that. Do you think part of that was due to the fact that do they see themselves as quote unquote Americans? Like, remember that scene from Godfather where Michael, I think it was actually Godfather 2. It was Godfather Part 2, where Michael decides to enlist in the military. And Sonny's just reading him the riot act because it's like, why are you fighting for them? You're supposed to fight for your family or whatnot. But Michael,
you guys hear me?
Now, now we can. Yeah.
Okay.
But
all
I'm
right,
saying,
my parents
that scene in Godfather 2 where Michael it was like a throwaway towards the end of the movie. He volunteers for the military and Sonny loses it, right?
Yeah.
And he's like, you go fighting for them. It's like, wait a minute, I thought you guys were Americans, right?
Mm-hmm.
So do you think part of the attitude of your parents was such where they didn't necessarily feel attached to the country, like they felt themselves more, from the country that came from Haiti versus being American? Do you think that was made a part of it?
I think in a way because my mother just became an American citizen that time before I enlisted, and my father didn't become a citizen until I think 2003, 2004.
Mm-hmm.
And they were all about go to school, because my sister did that. My sister went to college. All my older cousins went to college, got their degrees. Majority of them got their degrees. So it was basically about that. I had two older cousins that enlisted that were already in the service before I joined the Army. My cousin, my one cousin was in the Navy. My other cousin went to the Marine Corps. And Both of them, I think, my cousin Gilbert did finish college and then went to the Marine Corps. My other cousin Gene didn't finish college, joined the Navy, and then after he finished, he was able to finish college. So my parents were all like, "No, you need to go to school, go to school, go to school." But when I felt like I needed something different, like I already had structure, order, discipline, foundation. Me going to the Army gave me direction. And it helped me in a lot of ways my parents never thought possible. And I remember some time back, I think a few years ago, both of my parents were like, at first, we didn't want you to go into service because we didn't think it was good for you or so on and so forth. Now we see how you are. That was the best decision you ever made, and we're proud of you.
There's a song out there on town that I'm gonna send it to you off air because I don't remember the name of it right now. Country song, but the lyric says they told him how to put the uniform on, but he never took it off, and that's
right.
90% of people. And anybody who's trying to join the military is not Call of Duty as people think it is.
No, it's not.
Movie. CQ recommended this, and I watched this with the missus. Don't you guys even start tonight? Don't even think about starting. The Outpost is the most closest realistic. Because other ones are like real story, like 13 hours is pretty realistic too. But that shows the military what you guys go through. You know, shit in outhouses, freaking living in places like no power. You know, no like you barely, you know, like back in the medieval times almost.
Yeah.
So it's actually free on Amazon Prime right now. If anybody wants to go check out the Outpost. Seriously, if you want to see what Anton went through and other guys, what's that? Then come talk.
One movie that I definitely recommend people if you want to understand the importance of camaraderie and being there for each other no matter what when the shit hits the fan. Pardon my language. Other than 13 hours, Black Hawk Down.
Mm-hmm. That's another one.
Because one of my drone instructors, when I was in basic training, one of my drone instructors was in Mogadishu in '93. And later on, at my previous job, one of my managers was also in Mogadishu in '93.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that was like when I had a chance to ask them, and they was like, "Oh yeah." Like my manager, he was like, "Oh yeah, it definitely gives you a fair understanding of what went down." Yeah, a lot of it, just about 90% was accurate.
I think you can back me up on this. I'm one of the few civilians out there that can tell you I understand. Not a lot of civilians understand. They think they do, but they don't. Because
that's true.
I surrounded myself with all military friends.
Right. Yeah, and you hear the stories too.
But did you ever consider joining?
Me, of course.
So what was the thought process there? And what were your parents, if you would have joined, what were your parents would have said? Because I think that same immigrant mentality is could be at play.
So my mother was kind of upset because she just when I told her I want to join the service, we just finished watching Black Hawk Down, and I told her I was joining. So that was probably not the greatest time on my end.
Yeah,
my dad kind of put her in her place. He's listen, I'm like he's been talking about this since he was 8 years old. So he's been wanting to join the military all his life. Mm-hmm. You cannot take this away from him. And it was mostly because of my disability or my reading disability with the asthma. I couldn't get past it. And that's what it came down to.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Because, back then they felt now it's different. Now I can get, if I was going in, it was 18 now, and I want to go in, it's a waiver. I bring them paperwork from school. Yes, I have a reading disability. Okay, we can work with you now. Back then, it was not working. I wanted to go infantry, to be honest with you guys. But I didn't know any other jobs in the military.
Especially back in the day, they take anybody. Vietnam, it'd be like, it would have been no problem. They would take
anybody. 2004, 2005, Paul. This is a different time then.
I got you. I'm just saying, but there have been times when, again, the less educated, it was like if you were in college, I think you could get a waiver of some kind or whatever.
At that time, yeah.
Yeah, at those times. But I just want to kind of show this. I was talking about the high school. Again, certainly very different from what gym class certainly looks like today. So again, this is in high school in the 60s, and these are La Sierra High School, and it was like I said, this. I remember growing up, we had gym kind of not this vigorous. We weren't doing this kind of stuff, but we did push-ups, burpees. Everybody was kind of lined up. I mean, you had to These were things you kind of had to. Yes, definitely these. We did these for sure, and we had a cadence 1, 2, 3, 1, 1. Yeah, we had to do the leg ups. So I definitely remember doing kind of stuff like this, but we weren't, and we didn't have the leg, we didn't have the peg climbing. But some schools they had the ropes though. We had to climb up the rope, touch the ceiling, and come down. But see, but people see this stuff now. They see this at theme parks now. You know what I mean? The peg up thing.
Mm-hmm.
But you had to be able to do, kind of all this kind of stuff in order to be, so again, you were being prepared for something. So again, we talk about the obesity problems in the country and these kids. And I'm not saying every one of these kids you're going to turn them into a lean, mean fighting machine, all this kind of stuff. Yeah, some aren't going to cut the mustard. And I would even say 3 years. I think that might be a little long, but at least a year. At least go through basic training. Maybe learn how to properly use a firearm. We got firearm violence in this country. How to properly take that, clean a weapon, take it apart. Just certain things. Making your bed even.
I mean, I'll use Greece as a reference right now. So how the draft works. If you're going, you don't high school, then you probably get your letter in a week or two. If you're going to college, they put that on freeze. So they want you to finish your education first.
Right.
So then you're going to your draft after you're done with your college. You graduate college, and if, a few days later, you probably get a second letter saying, okay, it's time for you to come into the police station, pick, which, do your paperwork, pick what. You can pick what branch you want, but that doesn't mean you're going to get the branch. It's
right. The thing also back in the 60s during the draft, we heard about people getting deferments because they were in college. But one thing that also helped some students, surprisingly, if they wanted to go into the service anyway without getting drafted, they would do ROTC.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And then once they graduated from college, they earned their commission in whatever branch, and then they just finish their commitment in that manner. And a lot of people don't realize how good ROTC is in so many ways. It's one of those things where a lot of colleges and universities have it, but a few schools that take it to a whole new level, because at one time they used to be military schools, and they have a very rich history, Virginia Tech and Texas A&M. Mm-hmm. And one thing most people don't realize, Texas A&M produces more officers for the military than the service academies combined.
Wow.
A lot of people don't realize that. Right. And yes, West Army just had their graduation over the weekend. So congratulations to the new LTs there. The Naval Academy also had their graduation over the weekend. So congratulations to the new ensigns and LTs of the Corps. I think Air Force is about to have their graduation, so congratulations to the new lieutenants in the Air Force as well. I'm sorry, I don't like counting the Space Force. And I think also the Coast Guard Academy had their graduation, so congratulations to the new ensigns there. So, yeah, and Texas A&M.
You guys used to go to the Coast Guard. Now you guys went to the Coast Guard to the Space Force. Pick which one you guys kind of fucking roast and go with.
Look, if you're Mandrell, if he's listening tonight, no other branch of military matters. He hates the SEALs. He hates anybody who's not Ranger, Green Beret, or whatever. He's hating on everybody. So some people you can't please everybody. But, just real quick, but again, today we're kind of laughing it up. But again, this is the call-in show. We got about 30 minutes left in the show, and so anybody who wants to come up, say hi to us. Address anything we're talking. So we're talking about military service, talking about Memorial Day, or the significance of Memorial Day. What are your thoughts about that? What are your thoughts on draft or any other show that we talked about? We talked about online dating last week. We talked about taxes. Are you a fan of the flat tax or progressive tax system or regressive tax system? What is your take on that? All types of topics.
I actually like a flat tax. I think a flat tax would work.
Yeah, well, again, you got to cut the fat. I mean, like I said, I don't mind it but you got to get rid of all the tax havens and loopholes. And again, I don't mind having certain exceptions. Like I think most flat tax proposals that I've seen, they say they don't tax your cost of goods. You're not taxed on that. You're only taxed on the profits from sales. So you give a credit there. But then on the other side, on the consumer side, you don't put a tax on food or other essential needs. You don't tax eggs and things of that nature, especially people in the lower income scale. You don't tax essentials. But if you're going to buy a multi-million-dollar yacht or something like that, yeah, you're going to pay full taxes on that. So again, if you can close some of the loopholes and the tax havens and the way people hide money, then yeah, I don't mind a flat tax. I know libertarians were big fans of it. And again, it was a conversation. But certainly where it is now with the state of the Libertarian Party is, that's another story, because you did have some traction. You did have, I think, Ross Perot. I don't think he was a libertarian per se, but again,
no, I don't think so.
But
I think he was part of the Reform Party. Ralph Nader was part of the Libertarians.
Nader was a Green Party. I think Nader.
Okay.
So you certainly had these guys who tried to run. You at least give you an alternative. But I know certainly in the 24 election, the Libertarian Party had a lot of fractures, and you had like a MAGA wing of the Libertarian Party, and you had traditional libertarians. They kind of they just kind of all flipped. So again, I think a lot of the ideas that were being proposed to start to sound more MAGA than what was used to be what a libertarian was for people. So that's another totally different conversation. But I'm just bringing to light that these are conversations that we have every week on the show. Every week we tackle a different issue, or we may have like a part one and part two of an issue, but we try to bring different issues to the floor and to have a meaningful conversation. The gray area is a conversation between myself and Peter, and obviously when we have call-in shows, when guests can come up, and we just chop it up, but we keep it respectful. So again, we don't have drama here. Definitely not a hate here. It's about how to have meaningful conversation about issues that affect all of us, whether you're black or white or whatever your ethnicity is. Also with the gray area, you also realize that through conversation, a lot of times you feel that you're more similar than not. And as well as people try to divide us on certain issues, we can have respectable debate and conversation for better understanding of each other. And that's really what the purpose of the gray area is. So every now and then I got to drop that antenna. I gotta promote the channel and hype up and just give people an idea, because people sometimes get in the chat and say things or whatnot. It's like, hey, we're not that kind of show.
It's not about the drama. It's not about the nonsense.
Right. And we're not experts. We're like, the fact that we're having a conversation, I'm not saying I'm an expert in anything, and neither is Pete or anybody else on the show. We're having a conversation just like you would at the coffee shop, or if you were in person or what have you. But because people ask, well, why don't you have experts on the show to talk about? But again, if you are an expert, like I said,
come on.
The days we talked about military, all kinds of guys in the military would flip out. Mandrell would be like, I can't believe you don't have Mandrell. If you're out there, come on up. Now, one direction I was going to actually bring up and resurface again. We had a show a few months ago that was really one of our popular shows. And again, in fact, while I have you on, I might as well bring this up. We had a show on just war theory. And so the idea was, are they, how do we justify? Because again, there's always been this mix of religion with military, and there've always been these classes. So when we talk about some of the interventions that the U.S. has had over time, there were rules. I know Thomas Aquinas, first it started with the August, so we really got to go all the way back, at least from a Christian perspective. You got to go all the way back to the Roman Empire, when Christianity became the official religion of Rome. A lot of people to the day, I'm one of them, I question that marriage, because I think Rome had a greater effect on Christianity than the other way around. Because a lot of the early church fathers were pacifists back in the day. In fact, you couldn't be a Christian back in the day if you were in military service. After Rome took over, the game changed. And so it started with Saint Augustine and
Thomas Aquinas.
Correct. And Thomas Aquinas, he actually put together a framework of just war theory. And while I have you up, I wouldn't mind getting your 2 cents on it. And again, the chat is still open. So again, if you
Question,
want to come
Paul.
up, yeah.
Before anything else, you said the Catholic Church, you think did a lot for Christianity?
The Catholic Church did a lot for Christianity. I
Did you
mean,
make that-
no,
did you
I
make that
said
statement? I'm trying to clear that up. That's all.
no. So what I was saying was when Rome adopted Christianity as its official religion,
Mm-hmm.
I think that did more to change Christianity as much as Christianity changed Rome.
Okay, I agree with that.
So
Okay.
the idea here is like, I think that Christianity in a lot of ways adopted some more imperial tendencies and allowed things that were synonymous with empires or justification for certain acts of the emperor or whoever was in charge. But if you look at certain things that maybe Jesus would have said, it's how do you find compatibility? So I think what church fathers have done since Augustine, certainly with Thomas Aquinas, they kind of tried to have some parameters or some rules that people could go by. And I think this still fits with the theme tonight. We're talking about this idea of Memorial Day and the meaning of it. And if you're talking about honoring those who've had military service. So there were 8 points that Thomas Aquinas raised in terms of what qualifies as a just war, not a holy war. Holy war, that's where God says, yeah, I want you to go and do this. But when you're talking about governments and what are the measures and means by which we go to war, when you go through these points, you have to ask yourself, even in this country, which always has wrapped itself in God and, and we're on the righteous side of things or whatever, these points alone, we have to start asking ourselves, because the Catholic Church mostly embraces these. I don't know about the Orthodox Church, but certainly the Catholic Church also embraces some of these tenets. So again, the idea that, again, a just war can only be waged as a last resort. All nonviolent options must be exhausted before the use of force can be justified. Again, we have to ask ourselves as a country, have we always done that? Second point, a war is only just if it's waged by a legitimate authority. So again, a government declaring war. But then people ask the Crusades, for example,
that's one example.
That was not a government war. The church decided that we were going to go and engage in that. Was that just? Third point, a just war can only be fought to redress wrongs suffered. For example, self-defense against an armed attack is always considered to be just. Again, with a lot of the things that are going on now, people are asking, we weren't attacked. Like when we went, even the Iraq war back in the day, we was like, they didn't attack us. So were we justified by going to war against a country that never did anything to us? Fourth, furthermore, a just war can only be fought with the right intentions. The only permissible objective of war is to redress the injury. A war can only be fought just if it's fought with a reasonable chance of success. Death and injury incurred in a hopeless cause are not morally justifiable. So again, we're talking about Memorial Day. And guys have given their lives in service. Were the guys who fell, were they served by their nation? Were they put in situations the best chance to succeed? So again, you talk about Vietnam. And we were putting money in there, the Gulf of Tonkin attack and all that stuff. Johnson escalates it and puts all the troops there, and we would lose again 58,000, I think is the official number of soldiers who died in the Vietnam War. But did we put them in the best scenario to win? The ultimate goal of war is to reestablish peace. More specifically, a peace established after war must be preferable to the peace that would have prevailed if the war had not been fought. So for a lot of people, they're always bringing up World War II. Yeah, we had to do that one because if that didn't happen, you would have had more calamity back in the day. But since World War II, like I said, our record has not been stellar when it's come to war. And even with World War II, we got to ask ourselves some questions. Point 7, the violence used in war must be proportional to the injury suffered. So in other words, you come and slap me in the face. Do I have a right to beat you within an ounce of your life? Is that a proportional, redress of the issue? So again, when we talk about certain acts, the Hiroshima and Nagasaki bombings, and not even those, because even those weren't the worst. The worst were the fire bombs of Tokyo, deleted more people than the Nagasaki or Hiroshima bombs. Were we justified in not say the production of those weapons? Because people were saying, well, maybe it would have been enough to demonstrate them, not to use them, but we used them on civilian populations. And since World War II, we got the Geneva Convention and the rules of war. And again, we're running up against that all the time. How many nations that signed up for the Geneva Convention in terms of military action in war? How many times is that being violated? And that opens up a whole can of worms when it comes to what's happening now with Israel, with all these other entities. That's opened up a whole can of worms that we can't necessarily justify. And then the last one, the weapon used in war must discriminate between combatants and non-combatants. Civilians are never permissible targets of war, and every effort must be made to avoid deleting civilians. So these are the 8 tenets that Thomas Aquinas put together when it came to just war theory. And we had this conversation. For those who went and gave their lives in service, was it always for a just cause? And did we put them in a position for where it was a just cause? And so, Anton, since you're a military guy, I know Mandrell was losing his hair when we're going over this, and he wanted to come on. But again, if you're out there, Mandrell, you're surely more than welcome to come up. But you, as a former military guy, I don't know, first of all, do they ever talk about these things with you in service? Did they talk about just war while you were in service, these points by Aquinas, or some sort of, iteration of it? And just your thoughts on this, just overall.
I remember talking to a priest about it when I was in signal school. They had this one. I remember going to this one weekend. I actually got permission too. I got to go to this one weekend. It was kind of like a weekend retreat, and it was kind of like a renewal. And basically, this was one for service members that were Catholic, and it was basically a renewal and a recommitment of your faith. And I remember those things were discussed because not everyone there was service members. Some were service members, some were civilians. And this was something that was put together, I think, by the Archdiocese and the Archdiocese in Augusta. And that was one of the things that was brought up was, the rules of Thomas Aquinas. And that's what I've always said. I use my faith to guide me. To make me a better person in every sense, to be a better husband, to be a better father, to be a better person. At the time when I was in the service, I wasn't married. So I didn't just use my faith to try to guide me to be a better person, but I also used it to be a better soldier. So it was one of those things that made you think, like, I know if I get that call, I have to go.
Oh,
but
so
yes, a part of the things. Say again?
You're a reservist?
Yeah, I was active. I was reserve and guard, but I never went. When I was active, there was nothing really going on.
Okay.
By the time I got out, then later on, of course, September 11th and everything else, and went from there. But it was one of those things that made you realize, okay, I'm just hoping that whatever situation we're going to, we're going in for the right reasons. It doesn't always happen that way.
Right.
And sometimes I try not to use that to conflict with my faith.
Yeah.
And
it's
I just said,
because one of the questions that we ask when we have interviews, I mean, certainly we've had several gray area shows where we've interviewed former military people. And one of the questions I'm always asking is, in your service, was there a gray area? meaning that, because a lot of times you join and they give you, like I said, we're on the side of God and righteousness and all our acts are just and everything. But you may find yourself when you're in a combat zone, when you're in a certain situation and things look a little like, wait a minute, what are we doing? Is this right? Like you said, it can mess with your faith sometimes when it comes to doing certain military actions. And again, when you talk about Vietnam and there was some major court cases over command actions. I forget there was a captain, I forget his name, that was tried because basically soldiers was trying to say, look, our commanders ordered us to do this, and it came to a point where they had to do some revisions. Like, no, I mean, again, not to get political again, but it came up recently in the past year where you had talking about you as a soldier, you cannot obey an illegal order. And
I feel
a lot of heck with people in the administration and elsewhere for simply signing.
I'm not surprised about that
in the military code.
I'm not surprised about that. Certain individuals got their feathers ruffled because of that. The thing I tell people is, if you are given an order that basically, in other words, if you are given an order that jeopardizes the well-being of yourself and the well-being of others, you can refuse that order. You don't have to follow orders that justifies that will jeopardize your well-being and the well-being of others around you. And perfect example in a movie, The Rock, the scene in the washroom with the Navy SEALs and the Marines. And Ed Harris, who played General Hummel, kept telling the SEALs, Commander, you must, safety your weapons and place them on the deck. And the team leader kept saying, I can't give that order. And he kept telling them, you need to give him that order. I refuse to give him that order. I will not give that order. I would not give that order. I refuse to give that order. And then, unfortunately, all hell broke loose. Mm-hmm. That's an example of it. You had two superior officers of their respective groups. General Hummel gave him a direct order. The SEAL team leader knew that was an order that was going to jeopardize the well-being of himself and his men. And he said it. You damn well know I cannot give that order. And he kept consistent. I would not give that order. Because he knew if he gave that order, it could cost him his life, and it could cost him the life of his SEAL team. Mm. That, I tell people, that's the one example right there I use when I tell people, if you're given an order that jeopardizes the well-being of yourself as well as those around you, you can refuse to follow that order.
I know somebody who was in active duty who can't say details too much, but he was assigned to another squad. He goes, "Oh, I'm not going out with them." And it was something fishy. That's all I can say. And he wouldn't go out. He got court-martialed after going through court and everything. He was innocent, but obviously at the time, they discharged him for that. Because he still refused an order no matter what. So that's a catch-22. Right. Anton, you know this better than I do. Like, you can refuse an order, but you're going to get also smoked in the back burner.
Yeah,
that's the down.
And that's the messed up part. Is what you're going to face that most people don't know about. Unfortunately, the quote unquote politics of it. Yeah, that's the thing most people don't realize.
Yeah. Here's the thing that most people don't realize either: higher rank you get, more politics it becomes in the military.
Mm-hmm.
Or on high rank positions, and they're getting to the point now, like they're already over 20 years. They're close to 30 years. I'll say they're in it. They cannot wait to retire. How bad the politics in the military is worse than fucking DC. They say.
Yeah, I have a friend, one of my brother's friends. I mentored him before I got out, and we stayed in touch. He was telling me about some stuff that happened when he was in Afghanistan, when he was in Iraq. He was frustrated with a couple of things, and every time he's had some issues, he called me up. We talked, we chopped it up and everything else. And when something good happened, he gave me the heads up, like, hey, you were right, this, and this, so on and so forth. He's just about done. He already gave 20. He already has his 20. And he's like, yo, this new army is not, it's for the birds. And I said, I remember when we were the young pups and we heard the OGs say this new army stuff was for the birds. Now we're on the other side of it. So I don't blame you for feeling that way. And unfortunately, it is. It really is. And we don't like getting political, but when you look at the current administration, and you look at the current Secretary of Defense, I refuse to use that other title that he loves to use. That plays a role in it. It really does.
Yeah.
And ironically, the SecDef actually spoke at the graduation at West Point. And when he said what he said, I was like, this is why I'm glad I'm not in it anymore.
Yeah.
Because while he tries to be motivating, a lot of the stuff that he's mentioning is pure BS. And I feel like he tries too damn hard.
Yeah.
And now let me ask you a question, because I know we're on this topic right now. I'm a personal believer, if you're going to serve any public office, politics, of course I'm talking about, you should at least serve some type of military. National Guard, Air Force, yada, yada, yada. You agree or disagree with that term? My statement.
No, I agree, because I remember talking to someone, a college student at Penn State. I think she was going to Penn State at the time, a couple of years ago, and she was studying criminal justice, and she said she wanted to go into government law. And I said, if you want to have an understanding of how things work in government, don't talk to the 1%ers with the two common incomes. Don't talk to the 1%ers that have been elected officials with the two common incomes. Talk to the 1%ers that got dog tags, because we have a better understanding of how things work than they do. And her mother was like, wow, I never would have thought that. I said, and I showed her my dog tag, and she was like, wow. I said, seriously, you see anyone with a dog tag, no matter what branch they're in, however long they were in, if you want to have an understanding of how things work, talk to one of us, because we'll tell you the things that most people don't even realize. And we see a side that goes on that a lot of people don't know or realize or even aware of.
Yeah. I'm a little torn on it. Because obviously, you know, when people talk about greatest presidents or whatever, I mean, like Lincoln, from what I understand, didn't serve in the military. You know what I mean, so it's and obviously we've had some who have, who again didn't necessarily have the greatest results either. I certainly appreciate the idea of service. Like I said, I think it would be good for anybody, if you're an American citizen, 18 years of age, to have a mandatory at minimum a year in service, to at least have an appreciation for what it is. But again, we've had people, I mean, if that's the case, then, you know, Eisenhower, obviously, you know, supreme commander of in Europe or whatnot, obviously a very popular figure who was president. But again, Abraham Lincoln, a different story. Nixon, obviously, he was in the military, and we all know how that went. You know, and again, Kennedy and those guys. So again, the record, I don't know, bears out that those in military service have always yielded a better result. But I appreciate, you know, like I said, just in general, I think it just does a lot of good for a human being to recognize and understand what's involved. That you don't look at this like you call, like some these guys think this isn't Call of Duty. You know what I mean? And you use military assets as if, you know, like they're chess pieces and whatnot. I think
it's not.
You know, so I'm that one. I'm torn a little bit, But if you are going to insist on military service, I think everybody should do it. And I don't even mind women either. And I did have one, I guess, final kind of military question for you. Or what do you feel about? You mentioned soldier earlier. Now, obviously, in the military, to support the entire industrial complex, you have people who are enlisted, but they serve in a lot of different roles that are non-soldier specific. You got administrators. When we had, I forget the comedian that we had on, and he talked about, he basically he worked in administration, like, were you setting up like strip malls and just different things on bases to which, that support the soldiers and trying to give them a sense of normalcy and whatnot. Logistics teams, basically.
Right.
Do you, especially when it comes to Memorial Day, or certainly when we talk about veterans and saluting veterans, and when people talk about, I'm a veteran, well, what'd you do when you were in the military? I think you had a comedian, I think, who's the white comedian? Oh, geez, I'm having a brain freeze. Tall white comedian who he only dates black women. I forget his name. He just got married. I think he just got married. But he talks about, like, this as well, that if your main job in the military is cleaning bathrooms, are you a veteran at that point? Now, I don't know where you stand where do you stand on that when it says, well, I served in the military. Well, what'd you do? I was a desk officer or something.
You were a desk jockey.
Yeah, so
you were a clerk.
What do you feel about that? Is that, when people kind of brandish their military service, I put 20 years in, and you ask them what they did, and it's not something that you had to pick up a weapon and you had to go into a field or do something dangerous. Do you make that distinction, or the fact that you're enlisted, you're a service person, or whatever?
Honestly,
I'm sorry, Anton. Look, one of the guys we had a guest on our person hangout, Frank. He's in the service, but he never shot around at anybody.
Yeah. So I'm saying, for the guys who have. So again, this would be a great Mandrell question. I may ask him the next time he comes up, because he has no regard for the SEALs, basically. So that's where he is. So I'm just wondering, even if it's your team, okay, it's the Army, if it's your team, but if the person doesn't have what you may consider sweat equity in the game, how do you feel about those people when they talk about their military service and credentials, and they show their photo? They sit in the uniform and everything, but are you one of those guys who's like, if you didn't ride or die with us, if you weren't, you gotta show me some scars, some battle scars or whatever. So what's your take on that?
Not everyone is going to be 11 Bravo, which is infantry, or 19 Delta, which is a cavalry scout. So you do need people to handle the logistics and a support role and everything, and setting up our AO, area of operation. You need those individuals. You need people to make sure that our weapons are good. You need people to make sure that, that we're fed, we're hydrated. You need people to make sure that we have sanitary, we have, a sanitary environment. You need people to make sure that we got power. You need people to make sure that we got fuel. You need people to make sure that all our vehicles and helicopters are up and running and repaired. Everyone plays their role. Yeah. Everyone does their part.
So hold up. See, he's gonna do this to us. So first of all, shout out to our guy Terry from Philly. Okay, fly Eagles fly. So again, good luck. You guys stole my wide receiver in the draft, so I'm just saying that was a shady move by your GM. We're gonna do better about it. But again,
look further down, Paul. Look further down from it.
Yeah, that's what I'm getting there. But yes, speak of the angel himself.
Speak of the devil, you mean?
We've been trying to get
come
you
on, man. Hey, Mandrell, yeah, come on now. You regroup. Come on, Green Beret, get your ass up here.
And we're at we got literally 5 minutes left in the show, and finally you decided to show up to the show. We've been goading you all night to see if you were out there to come up. But we've been talking about military. We've been talking about Memorial Day. We've been talking about the draft. We've been talking about, what are your thoughts on those who are non-combat soldiers in the military? and and all that kind of stuff. So we were waiting to see. We talked about we brought up just war theory, which you were getting on us about the entire show. When we did the show a few months ago, we brought it up again, and here you coming at the end, late to the party as usual.
As he's trying to came up here for a second, let me ask you a question, Paul. You said Lincoln never served in the military. You said.
I'm sorry. What was that?
Did you say before Lincoln never served in the military?
I don't think so.
He did. He served for 15 weeks in. I have it right in front of me here. Where is it? 1832. And he didn't see no combat or anything. Black Hawk War. He fought in. He was a part of that campaign. Didn't fight because he didn't see no combat, but he was part of the service. Yes, he was part of the service.
Okay, stand correct, but no military action. But obviously we've had certainly non-military, especially in recent years, because I think it was almost like a non-written requirement, but certainly ever since because even Carter, Carter, well, Reagan was in, but he was non-combat also. I think I don't think he was in the service. I know Jimmy Carter
kind of stuff,
but I don't know if
Jimmy Carter graduated from the Naval Academy. Same thing with John F. Kennedy. Ulysses S. Grant graduated from West Point. Dwight Eisenhower graduated from West Point. Surprisingly, most people didn't know. One cadet that Ulysses S. Grant didn't know that also graduated from West Point, Robert E. Lee, the general of the Confederate Army. And here's the thing most people never knew. Robert E. Lee is the only cadet in the history of the West Point to never receive a demerit in his 4 years there.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Shout out to our guy, Terry. Listen, first of all, again, Terry, I'm not hating on anybody, any I'm not hating on anybody. I just know some soldiers who will be like, what did you do in the military? And you were like, you were on latrine duty or whatever it was. And they're like, you're not really a soldier. So again, I'm not in that category or class. But I was just asking the question. So again, I got no hate or whatever. I think all jobs have meaning, and
everyone plays their role. Everyone plays their part.
No disrespect at all. Shout out to Chris. Yeah, absolutely. No hate on Jet, at least from me. But I have heard it. There is this thing about guys. If you haven't been, when people talk about, I was in the service for a certain period of time or whatever. Some people feel a certain way about it for certain jobs or certain.
Honestly, you need a support element, because basically it's like each branch has their own philosophy. Like in the Army, everyone supports the infantry, so the support elements, the support jobs, are just as important as those with the blue cord. Mm-hmm. Like when I first went in my MOS, I wasn't signal. I was a cable dog. I put phone lines up and everything. That was my job. I was the one that helped set up communications, set up the antenna farm, things like that. Make sure everyone was able to have communication from the AO when they went and did their recon or did the convoys and everything else. I was also the guy responsible to make sure that guys could contact their families back home too. Mm. Then when I got reclassed into infantry, and because I did signal, my MOS came handy to where when I was with my squad, I was the one that was able to put together the radios to make sure everything was up and running. Like I was the one set up communication between the platoon leader.
Oh, then you froze up a little bit again. But Mandrell,
everyone plays a significant role in everyone.
Gotcha.
And I mean, you do get some guys that I think because, if you weren't, the snake eater is here.
So
what's good, Mandrell?
Late to the party as always. When we got 5 minutes, literally left in the show. But how you doing, sir?
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Coming in, little Charlie.
Yeah, my camera's not connected, but yeah, I'm doing well. I think that Usyk was given a gift. I agree with that. Whether he actually lost the fight or not, I'm not. I want to
Yeah,
go and
say
say that
that-
because at first glance, I'm just saying, just right now, at first glance, it seems like he lost. I mean, he got it brought to him. He might have won, but I want to watch it again. You know what I'm saying? I want to watch it again and just to see. But yeah, that was a good fight.
I got
Very
you.
good
Well,
fight.
listen, watch it again, and if you can come up Wednesday, so again on the Black Men Unfiltered Network, 101 Sports Show, Wednesday, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time here on the network. Again, Mandrell, if you're available, we can come up. We kind of discuss the fight in the state of boxing because you got your girl Alicia Baumgartner and Clarissa Shields. We got all kinds of drama going
that
on.
provoked
So
a fight that'll never happen.
right, but again, it's drama in the sport. So certainly, you're more than welcome. I'll create a boxing section, a block, and if you want to come up and we can talk about all things boxing, certainly I'll create a segment for you if you're available for it. But yeah, man, we've been chopping it up. But again, just real quick as we close out the show, just your general thoughts on Memorial Day in general. That's really what the driver of the show was. Again, is it commercialized? Do people even care anymore? Is is it more about barbecues and Memorial Day sales? You as a former soldier, as a former Green Beret, your thoughts on all of this? Is it just lip service, or does it still have, especially for those who've served, does it still have meaning to you when this day comes around?
It does have meaning to me, although by and large, I think most people don't even know what it's about. They don't know why Memorial Day is a thing. They just, I mean, if you work a job that acknowledges federal holidays, you're just happy to have the day off. For most people, they just don't even know what it's about. It's not marketed well. It really anymore. Like I remember growing up, you see the red, white, and blue, the American flag everywhere for Memorial Day sales. And sales, they're nonsense. What they do is they raise the prices a couple of weeks out, and then they drop it back down to the original price during the Memorial Day sale. So the sales are nonsense.
Yeah.
Like I was at Home Depot buying a drill, and I looked at the price, and my wife warned me about this a couple of months ago. Just pay attention and watch. I said, yeah, you were right. 6 months ago, this drill was the same price I paid for it, but now it's on sale. But a couple of weeks ago, it was higher. Now it's the original price. But yeah. But do I acknowledge it? Yes. Like tomorrow, I'm gonna go visit my father's grave. So it's a day for me. He was a soldier himself. So was my grandfather. Both of them. Both my grandfathers served in World War II. My father served during Gulf War, and he was like, even when I signed up for the Army, he and I were both in the Army at the same time. He was Bay. He was an E8, which is, if people don't know, that's a first sergeant rank. That's the second highest rank you can get as an enlisted soldier.
Oh, your dad was top?
Yeah, he was top. And then he went on.
Oh, wow.
But he made sergeant major.
Ooh.
Sergeant major. So, I mean, that's the highest rank you can have as an enlisted soldier. So,
respect.
Yeah. So, yeah, he is it important? Yes, I think it's important. You must remember the fallen. And it goes to show that these politicians who never serve, in my opinion, they should not be in charge of anything when it comes to the military. Like, I think most people don't know this, but in certain circles, it's a well-known fact that the last people to say, yes, let's go to war are the Joint Chiefs of Staff. They're the last ones to say something because they've been there and they've seen it. They know how difficult it is. And, okay, if you go in there, what are we going there to do? And how do we get out? Like every mission I've ever been on, that was it. How do we get in? What are we doing when we get there? And how are we going to get out? We're not Israel. We don't send people in to do a job and not worry about how to get us out. You know what I'm saying? It's too difficult. We're like, okay, let's sit around and let's think of this. Let's rethink this. Okay.
Yeah.
Like Mr. Bennett, you'd have been a good strategist had you signed up and learned how things work. I think you would have fit in very well because you already have that kind of thought process anyway, natively. And I think that had you signed up at an early age and went through the strategic route or the route of intelligence, you'd have fit in very well there.
Well, it's interesting that even growing up, I mean, I think all of us, if you grew up in the 70s, you at least it was in your mind, because all the ads the be all you can be Army ads,
or
those Marine ads. Like my favorite one with the Marines was the guy on a horse, and he's playing chess he's on a white horse. And
I remember that.
I remember.
And the king bows or whatever. He throws his sword in the air. Lightning strikes on. He transforms like He-Man, but instead of turning to He-Man, he has his Marine uniform on. Then they do that twirl at the end, and he flicks it up to view the proud of the Marines. Again, those ads back in the day were such where, I think if you were a kid, all of us thought about it. We played with Army men. We thought that this was just rappelling out of the helicopters. We thought it was just like the coolest thing. And so like we were saying earlier in the show, I wouldn't mind having some sort of minimum coming out of high school. You give at least a year of yourself in military service, at least go through basic training, at least do something. I think it'll teach you a world of it'll give you a world of good just to have that discipline and appreciation. I think if more people did that, then when it came to Memorial Day, at least you would have more respect for it. But as we said earlier in the show, most people don't know the difference between Memorial Day and Veterans Day. If you ask the average person what the difference is, they can't tell you. But if you had to go in for a year and just take it up, and then you can go to college. And I don't even mind if you give some incentives. You serve 1 year, you get some credits that you can apply if you want to go to college or a trade school or something like that. I don't mind some carrots to incentivize people, students to do. I know you got the GI Bill and a lot of those things, but if you're gonna give a year of your life in service, then I think I don't mind giving you a little something at the end. I really don't. But I think all of us thought that at one point, and then but when you started learning things about if I go into this, and I may go into, like I said, with Vietnam especially, is this going to be is this going to be the right decision? And I think for a lot of people, I think they really soured on the idea of joining when all these losses, because since World War II, the American track record in the theater of war has not been great, no matter how much they promoted otherwise. And so I think that's what also soured a lot of people on it. But I still think having a year in, men and women, I think would do, especially for younger generations, I think it would do a world of good for people. But
I say, personally, I say 2 years minimum, not just 1 year.
I say enough.
I say two. I say minimum.
Or
at a minimum, if you're gonna do that, let them get something out of it. I say a minimum of 2 years. And
so you guys don't think so? What? How long is basic training camp?
About 3 months.
Okay, so you get 3 months there, then you learn. I mean, what? I guess because Anton, you said 3 years. So again, what are you going to get out of 2 years that you couldn't get? Again, an accelerated type of program, if you will, that you couldn't get out of a year, knowing that boot camp is only 3 months. Either one, Anton or Mandrell.
Oh, well, here's the thing. Basic training is 3 months, but how long is AIT?
It varies. What
right? That's what I'm getting at. Like how long you spend at AIT varies. It depends on the job you got. You know what I mean? So some jobs are a few months long, a few weeks long. Some months, or some jobs are a few months. Some jobs you might be in there a year or two.
I get it.
So it kind of varies. BS. What are you going to get out? It's the longer you're in, the more it sticks. The values and the lessons you learn, things like that. The longer you're in, the more it sticks. A lot of people. What I'm
saying is, you can have a floor. So again, because obviously you're going to have people in the military who are going to be in for longer, right? You sign up for 2 years or whatever whatever deals that are tied to the list that you're in. I'm saying there should be a floor. So you might do your 1 year and get out, or you may want to stay in for a couple more years if they give you more sticks and carrots at the end. I'm saying you can have, because like you said, it depends on the program, so that you could have like a base program that should take you a year, maybe 18 months tops to finish. If you want to leave now, you can. If you stay in, as you said, these are people who want to be officers, who want to have a career. Then you create a path for them, and obviously it's going to be a longer length of service. That's all I'm saying. I mean,
but my thing is, well, and here's why I'm kind of against. I see the value in forcing people, making it mandatory military service, but at the same time, people won't appreciate it if it's mandatory. What separated GWAT, my generation of soldier, and service from most other people, well, pretty much every other service, is that this, for the first time, we're at war with a completely voluntary force. 100% from start to finish, all 20 years, completely voluntary. It wasn't just a conflict like Desert Storm was. Desert Storm was not an actual war. That was just a big operation that lasted a few months. I'm talking about we were at war for 20 years. It was a completely volunteer force. So therein lies, therein lies the difference. Mm-hmm. There's a different level of appreciation for people who chose to do that voluntarily over and over again than someone being, okay, you've been drafted. This is what you have to do. You don't have a choice.
Right. So, and I'm saying, and I still think that would still be the case. Like I said, I don't think that experience will be taken away from someone who, again, if you choose this, but even for the mandatory, I still think there's a net benefit to it. Maybe some discipline.
There is
the fact that you learn how to make your bed every day. You know what I'm saying? But especially when you look at a lot of young people today, there's just certain skills, there's just certain things that they just haven't been taught.
Right, they haven't been taught, and they never learn. We hear it in these relationship talks. Like I don't listen to it anymore. Yeah. I don't even watch the content anymore, to be honest, because the more I listened to it and I actually put thought to it, I was like, yeah, none of this is actually going to work in a real relationship. Mm-hmm. It's no. But these are things like social skills that people have not learned. They don't know how, and I get it. There is a net benefit to it. I agree with you there. My question would be on the back end, the aftermath. What actually? I know what our goal would be, and there are some who are gonna get there, and that goal will be met. But there's gonna be backlash too. What's that gonna look like? You see what I'm saying? Yeah. So, are people are we really going to revere and appreciate soldiers, or is it going to be watered down because it's now mandatory as opposed to being voluntary?
Gotcha.
Because they try to market it. They try to market soldiers in military service these days like they never have. It's just done in a different way. I still think they need the commercials like they used to have.
Yeah.
Now they're making like a video game. Like I think one of the more recent Army ads I saw, especially when it comes to cyber.
Yeah.
It's almost like we want to recruit gamers because
they do.
Because, they
do.
That's the ad. It's not the guy, you jumping out of a helicopter into the water and got to swim the shore or get into a fast boat or something like it. Like they're taking away the physicality and they're saying the wars of the future. We're going to need analytics. We're going to need, cyber. We're going to need all these things. So again, the physicality seems to be being taken out of it now. And again, I understand that piece that it needs to be added, but I don't want to take away necessarily the physical, because I think there's value in that physical training and that physical discipline and endurance that you also need to develop. It's not an either or thing with me. I think it's an and.
Yeah, right. It's correct. And that's the big hoopla when it comes to guys, when it comes to the conversation of women in combat arms, serving in a combat arms role. That's the rub. It's not that we don't want women in combat arms. We do. We don't care. If she can meet the standard, fair enough. Come on aboard. Mm-hmm. The problem that we have, especially in special operations, is when you lower the standard.
Yeah.
Absolutely not. You under no circumstances are you to, especially as a combat veteran myself, you under no circumstances do you lower that standard, because to me that standard wasn't enough. To me, now from my experience, no, that standard doesn't. The standard, it helps and it gives you an idea of how tough things are, but when you're there, like people like, well, women can do it too. Okay, maybe if she's fresh, but what is she gonna be able to do this when she's been working 14 hours? And then all of a sudden she pops an Ambien to force herself to sleep, just like the rest of us do. All of us, because we took Ambien like Tic Tac. So anyway, you pop an Ambien, you finally lay in your rack, right? You've been working 14, 15 hours. All of a sudden, boom, you get spun up for something. You have to go to an intel briefing, figure out what's going on, determine your route, and then you have to get your shit, all your kit and your gear, and then go.
Right.
Or like in super, super rare cases, you're on comms, finding out everything you need to do on your way there. Okay, so now this mission that you're on now might take 8 to 9 hours. You don't know. It could be 20 minutes or it could be 12 hours. You don't know. What's she gonna do? Is her endurance gonna be that high? That's why the standards can't, in my opinion, should not be lowered because it's way more nuanced and way tougher than people give it credit for. You know, it's a different thing. Like you just woke up and 3 hours later, okay, now you get spun up for something. Oh, okay. Oh, well, yeah. Who can't do that? I mean, you know what I mean? Okay, yeah, that's fine. However, when things get tough, because again, when you look, you have to look at it. You like Mr. Bennett, syphilis might go down. Okay. Now, let's say syphilis there, and I'm sorry, but I call him syphilis because he's Greek. But he gets hit in the leg or something like that.
You've reached your limit on talking.
Right? Okay, let's see.
We're definitely in the overtime block, ladies and gentlemen.
I know, but I'll be quick. Let's say he gets hit in the leg or whatever, right? He goes down. You now have to grab him and pull him to safety, like behind a Humvee, behind a brick wall, whatever, right? Whatever it is. Let's say he's 195 pounds, okay? But with his kit, he's easily carrying 100 pounds plus with all the gear, right?
Yeah.
So now he's 300 pounds. And he's one of the small ones. That's one of the examples I gave people. I said, I'm one of the small ones, but with all my kit on, I'm 300 pounds. When I put on all my kit, I was 100. I would bounce between 190 and 200 pounds. That's the weight I would, the 10 pounds I would bounce around with, right? So I put on all my.
That was your prime weight, right? That was,
yeah. That's when I'm in my prime, when I'm bouncing between 190 and 200. But with my I'm that again. The kit is 100 pounds. You're not factoring in how much water I drink, how much food I've eaten. You know what I'm saying? So I'm 300 pounds at 5'8" tall. I'm one of the small ones. How tall are you, Mr. Bennett?
6'3".
Normal. You're everywhere. Your height. You're everywhere. 6 foot and up. That's normal. Like the average on the small end was 5'10". The average small guy was 5. So it's like, but you had guys like me because there's guys of all shapes and sizes. Didn't matter if you made it through the training. You made it through the training. You okay, cool. But is a woman going to be able to, under all that stress? You've been working 14, 15 hours. You get spun up. Okay, you're out there. You've been out there an hour. This has been going on an hour or so now. Is she going to be able to grab you and pull you to safety if you get? See what I'm saying? Pete, look at Pete shaking his head. So that's the question you have to ask. And again, that's why the standard shouldn't be lowered, because the standard doesn't really prepare you for that. Now we're going to go to the gym anyway because that's just what we do. You're talking about guys in special operations who, especially when you get to the level of Green Beret, because the only thing above that is Delta Force. So at Green Berets, you're talking about guys, you're not going to have to tell them to work out.
Question: has there ever been a female Green Beret?
Yes. in this new era.
Really?
In this new thing.
Oh, back then, no.
But before, in my time, no, there weren't. But when you talk about when the Biden administration came in and said, no, let women in everything, that's when you got that. That's when you got women going to Ranger School. But here's the thing. Yeah, she made it to Ranger School. But if you had any idea how much help these chicks got to make it through that, you know full well it is completely unfair. Past Ranger School, didn't do everything everyone else did. You did.
We've been talking about putting women in infantry since the last Bush president. And I always was to make them snipers, to this. And I asked a woman once, straight up, just, can you put a round down range, knowing you save your unit when that kid is only 8 years old? The answer was no. Now, as a guy, and I'll ask you, Anton, and all you guys, could you put a round down range to save your unit? My answer is yes, immediately.
Yeah,
I've done it. You talking about because I don't. You got to understand what you did.
I know you did it. I'm asking the other guys on the panel who had not done it.
Oh yeah.
All right, rephrase one more time.
Would you put around in the 8-year-old kid to save your team members?
Yeah.
A woman wouldn't do that. That's their nature, unfortunately.
Most women won't do that. And the thing is, the good news about being a Green Beret, like if you go to Rangers, you don't have to go through psych evals. You don't have to do that. You just have to just not quit. And believe me, there's a reason why the attrition rate is so high. It is brutal. It is tough. It really is tough. Okay, going through Ranger assessment and selection. It is when I was in, it was called RIP.
RAS you talk about? Now they call it RAS, I believe.
Yeah, now it's called RAS, Ranger Assessment and Selection Program. But when I was in, it was RIP. It is the same thing. It is like everyone I know who started off as Rangers and then moved up to Green Beret. They tell you, look, RIP was no joke. You know, basic training, it was whatever. It was kind of a joke. Airborne school, yeah, it was. It demanded a lot, but kind of a breeze. Guys would get drunk and short the formation, and run 5 miles. Okay. But anyway, but there's like when they got the RIP, no joke. They were like every day. It was just brutal every day. So my thing is, you make it through that, and you go to Green Berets. You know what I'm saying? You're talking about a guy you don't have to tell them to go work out. You don't have to tell them to do correspondence courses. You don't have to tell them certain things because those are things we want to do. So we're going to go do them. So that's why everything is different. When you're at work, everything is focused on everything else. No one cares about your PT scores. You're going to pass that. But I think I got off topic. What was your question?
So before we move on to what you were saying, 70% of people who do the selection for Special Forces, Green Berets, Rangers, or whatever, drop out.
Yes, 30%. They quit.
Not because they're physical, not because they can't do the training, not because they can't shoot a rifle, it's because they break mentally. You have to be mentally tough to get through these courses.
And the thing is, what I think I told you during my interview, what got me through is my perspective on things. Like number one, basic training, I pick up on what's going on. Okay, they're pushing us through this stuff, but they can't kill me. All I have to do is just keep trucking, keep moving, do the best that I can. They can't kill me. I got the Special Forces selection. I'm not gonna lie. I started questioning things because when you're there in the beginning, you're there and it's a lot of individual stuff. You're on your own, and you have to land nav through the woods at night. And you start questioning, when you do your land nav, you do your land nav, you get your grid coordinates, you shoot your azimuth, and you're heading
stories about that.
No problem. And so when you're heading in that direction, let's say that thing might be 6 miles away from you, right? Let's say you're 4 miles in, and you're going through the woods. You're like, I've been walking a long time. Am I headed in the right direction? Did I miss it?
And the thing people don't realize also during selection, it's rare when this happens, but it does happen once in a blue moon. People do die during selection sometimes too.
Yeah, there's you hear all kinds of things too, man. You hear about guys getting bitten by snakes and stuff out there. It didn't happen when I was there, but I mean, these are things you hear about. But at the same time, like Peter just said, it's the mental portion that really does get people, because when you start questioning yourself, oh shit, that's when you're in trouble. But with like when we did the final test, the whole thing, and I didn't know this at the time, but the whole course was 52 square miles. I didn't know that though. So, but I'm going through this thing, and one point is way further than the other. Like this point might be closer to you than the next point might be. You just don't know, and no one's going to tell you that you're doing a good job. There's no feedback. Hey, am I at the right point? Show me where you were. Show me where you are. Mm-hmm. Okay, now over there, underneath that rock, those are your next grid coordinates. Okay, so am I making good time? Do your best. No. How long we been out here? Good luck. There's no encouragement. There's no discouragement. You get nothing. You know what I'm saying?
Mandrell, I think that's the reason what's called 3 weeks in hell.
What's that?
Going through selection.
Going through selection. Yeah, it's just you again. You don't know. You don't know until the event's over. You know what I'm saying? So you start.
It used to be 2 weeks. People don't realize. It used to be 2 weeks. Now it's 3 weeks.
When I went through, it was 2 weeks. But when you start the event, Mr. Bennett, and the sun's going down, but when you finish, the sun is coming up.
Yeah.
And then you still got shit to do that the whole next day, and it's like, oh my God. But then you finally get sleep. You know, and then they only let you get like 4 hours at a time.
Yeah.
It's the mental portion that Pete's right. Yeah. It's the mental portion that gets you. You got some guys out there who are some studs, but I mean absolute studs doing amazing things, making amazing times, but they quit. There are people who played in the NFL. NFL professional athletes come to SF selection and quit. They don't make it.
And people don't realize one major thing. When you're going through this course, it's not the time. They just want you to finish. That's all they care about. And this is the funny part. I'm a civilian. I know this shit.
No, they care about the time.
They do care about the time.
They do care about the time, but they're not going to tell you.
They're not going to tell you that. Now, here's the thing. They're not going to tell you how fast you're moving or how slow you're moving. You know, but they do care if you make the time, you make the standard. Okay, we're going to move them to the next thing. And the thing is, that's why you have a lot of people who go through the entire 2 weeks. When I was in, it's 3 weeks now. They go through the entire thing, pass everything, but they don't get selected.
Yup, I heard about that.
They call it a 14-day no select. They call it. Yeah, that's a thing too. So there's other things that they look for.
I know.
Some people, because the first thing they do once you actually, before you begin the Q course, they give you a psych eval, which is ridiculous. It's long as fuck. They ask you ridiculous questions. So when's the last time? So Pete, when's the last time you've been with a woman? They'll ask you questions like that, right? Then like 50 questions later, they'll come back to that question or something like that. And they go, hey, Paul, how often is it that you fantasize about having sex with a man? They'll ask you those, man. They'll do it.
Now, is it they're looking for an answer, or are they looking for your response to it? Let's hypothetically, if someone said, "Yeah, often," that's like automatically disqualified, or are they just looking to see can you handle the pressure? Is what's the goal of the test, to answer truthfully, or what's the
Well, you want to answer as truthfully as you can,
right?
Because hypotheticals that they know that you don't know anything about. They know that you haven't really thought about these things, and again, they have this thing dialed down to the size of a gnat's ass. Like when you get done with that psychiatrist knows if you're the right person for that job or not. Like they know. Period. There is no question about it. But the purpose of them asking you those questions is they're looking for both what you answer, your answer, and how you answer it.
Right.
Because
the thing that gets me with, and again, we're going to wind down the show in a few minutes, but I definitely want to ask you this, because let's say you get through all of that, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you're in.
Right.
Now, you may be asked now, earlier before you came on, I don't know if you were listening, we talked about just war theory. In fact, we had a show on it a few months ago. And they talk about that, obviously we have Geneva Conventions and we have certain protocols that in the theater of war we need to be following. And we can always question, and we can rules of engagement, and we can certainly in recent decades, really not even years but decades, we can question whether or not a lot of the acts of any military, whether it be ours or Israel's or whoever the military is, we can certainly ask some questions about some of the things that go on. But when you're in this elite position, what is your mindset when it comes to the acts that you do, the taking certain orders? I know there was a big brouhaha a few months ago when you had former military saying, as a soldier, you're not supposed to follow illegal orders. And we talked about, even on our Hangout show on the Sparta Network, we talked about Rambo. And remember the scene from the movie where Troutman comes in and he talks about what his job description was. And you were all up in it like, yep, that's kind of like what it's like. So again, at what point, as someone who you went through all the psych evals, you're the right person, but is the right person someone who will do almost anything in the theater of war to achieve whatever the aims or objectives are? Are they looking for a certain character or someone who will not do certain things? I'm thinking if you get to that level and they're going to be seeing you things, you got to be willing to do almost anything. You're almost like you don't have a conscience to an extent. So how do you explain that? That piece when you get to that level and you're doing certain things or whatever, and you got to have a mind that either switches off your if you have any morality whatsoever, you got to go and do certain things. So break that down, and we'll make that the final point. And I know we're going to hopefully all you guys have the day off tomorrow, because we don't like to have people over the show. We appreciate you guys staying on, and we still got some folks in the audience. So again, for you guys have been rocking with us since the show started, appreciate you guys staying on with us for the show. Just make sure you hit the like button, certainly here and on the Sparta HQ Network. Make sure you hit the like buttons there. But certainly as we start to land this plane, I want to give Mandrell the floor, since he's out of all of us, he's got, he's been certainly in the most extreme, I would say, theaters of war out there. So break that down for us in terms of what that looks like for a soldier in a position like yours to do the sort of things that you've done in service to your country.
Well, like I said, in the psych eval, they're asking you questions like that as well. Sometimes directly, sometimes they give you hypotheticals, situations for you to sit there and think about for a few seconds and then give them an answer, right? So what they're looking for is a person who's on the spectrum of sociopathy. They're not looking for a psychopath, but sociopathy is a spectrum. If you're a psychopath, if you're a psychopath or a full-blown sociopath, they won't accept you.
Okay.
Because a sociopath, full-blown sociopath, will pass a polygraph test. He'll lie. He doesn't have a conscience. They do every time. I believe it. Yeah, they blow right through the polygraph, like pacifying colors. And that in itself is a telltale sign. I was like, okay, something's up with this dude. Let's give him a little bit more. But so they're looking for someone on the scale of sociopathy. They want you to have a conscience because they don't want you going into, say, a urban area or a populated area and just start murdering civilians. They don't want that. What they want is a smart person who they can train to shoot, who they can train to be physically fit. You know what I mean? And teach them how to. But you have to be. They want a smart person first. They didn't want you to be. If you go into a situation, right, and you just annihilate an entire civilization, you're in trouble, dude. You're probably going to Leavenworth for the rest of your life. You know, you don't just go in and annihilate. You figure out a different way to get the objective done. You might have to run through 3 or 4 people, maybe 6 or 12 of them, but not the whole village. If you get what I'm saying, you know, because once you do your AAR, which stands for after action review, they're gonna listen to your story, listen to what happened. They're gonna look at the collateral damage and what's going on, what happened in that situation, and measure that up to with what you said.
Right.
And they will figure out if you're telling the truth or not. So they don't want you to massacre a bunch of people. Doing any orders? Well, I've never had that problem because the orders I was given, the objectives, I've never had a problem with an objective I was given. I'll say that. However, figuring out how to achieve that objective is largely, and in my experience, every single time was all on us. We figure out how to achieve the objective. You know, because you keep in mind, we in Afghanistan, we were 200 miles behind enemy lines, and there were 12 of us. We're completely unsupervised. You know, so you got to think about it. Let's say you do go and annihilate that entire village. Okay, because I met people who say that they would do that for whatever reason. I'm like, okay, you do know that if you get in trouble, the cavalry ain't coming over the next hill. Help's not coming in time to help you like that. You know, you're 200 miles away. The nearest gunship that's a 20-minute flight. So, okay, what are you gonna do? And then the next ODA that comes behind you and relieves you, once you leave, you're gonna leave them with all that nonsense all that damage you caused. They have to deal with that now,
right?
For the entire duration of their deployment. So, you know, and Green Berets, we're a force multiplier. We're not going to multiply forces like that, you know. So you have to think this way, think outside the box. That's preached nonstop. It's drilled into you from day one. Think outside the box, think outside the box, think outside the box. So are they looking for psychopaths? Absolutely not. Sociopaths? Absolutely not. On the spectrum of sociopathy? Yes. Now, if they found out that you're willing to say, because I was asked this is one of the questions that stuck with me in my psych eval. Would you kill a child? No. Would you kill a child who had a weapon and they had it aimed at your teammates, and you knew for a fact the child was going to shoot? Would you shoot that child? I said I would never shoot a child, but I'll always kill a soldier if I have to. But this is a child.
That's the answer to the question.
What do you mean? And so they said, what do you mean? I said, well, he's a child, but the second he picks up that weapon to use against
he's a soldier.
Against myself or my teammates, he's now a soldier. I will have no problem using lethal force if it's necessary in that situation. And I said it again, if it's necessary.
Right.
I said, okay. And I saw him writing my answers down. Whatever they're writing down on their paper. They was writing it down. But so things like that.
And what if by chance, again, even if it wasn't intentional, but unfortunately, and I don't want to use the word innocent per se, but a non-combatant in an incursion gets taken out. What is in your mind in terms of, as the person who was part of that, or you actually did it? What's the mindset like in terms of, is the sociopath spectrum as such where you're like, oh well, it happens, or how, you know, do you process that a little bit differently than other people? What happens in those situations? Because again, those things happen. We know, you know, again, there's been recent news about things that have happened. Bombs have been dropped on schools and all this other kind of stuff that goes on. But in your mind, how do you get over that for the next action, for the next mission, or get into the next level that you need to get to?
Oh, in the moment, it doesn't bother me at all. Shit happens. You know what I'm saying? So you as far as like, I recognize that, hey, this is a bad thing. This should not have happened. I wish it didn't. Let's figure out a different way of going about whatever we have to do to prevent more of this from happening. That's where I'm in the moment. In the moment, like if it happens once, okay, maybe we're doing something wrong, or it might have been unavoidable. It depends on what's going on. What else is going on in that situation at the moment? But in the moment, are my feelings hurt? No, I don't feel the least bit bad about it. I'm in war. You know, civilians may get hurt. that's something you deal with later on,
Mhm.
afterwards. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Yeah.
what's
So
up,
about
what's the
in the debrief, I guess.
Yeah, in the
Uh,
after action review, you
yeah.
sit there, you talk with your teammates, and okay, what happened? Let's run this over. Let's go over this again. And you and your teammates, you might go over that stuff 100 times just to make sure that no one screwed up and this really was an accident.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? Because that's not what you want. It's even in the mission, it's not what any of us want.
Yeah.
So that's what I mean by this. They're looking for someone on the spectrum of it, because I want to do the right thing. I don't want to hurt innocent people. But at the same time, if it does happen, does it stop me from doing the rest of my job? Do I freeze up? Do I break down crying in the middle of this? Or do I keep moving? Do I keep soldiering on and complete the mission and get home?
Yeah.
So, it's so that's where it is. You just, if you got some people like I think his name's Latrell, that Navy SEAL who was in The Lone Survivor. What the
Mark,
SEAL
Mark,
that guy. The real story behind that is he did bitch up. He gave up during the fight. He did run off and leave his team to die on that mountain. That's the real story. You know what I'm saying? And there's tons and tons of absolute failures from the Navy SEALs, but you see how the government spins it into some kind of success or whatever. But then you have movies like Black Hawk Down, and it looks like the Rangers lost. You know what I mean? The way the movie goes, it seems like the Rangers lost. But the thing is, the death toll was like 42-1. For every Ranger that was lost, like 40 of the Somalis died. And on top of that, what you didn't see, because the movie ended, was after that, like it was that battle was just as intense as that movie implies it was. It was ridiculous.
Yeah.
So I met a few guys who were on that mission. Some guys from Delta, some former Rangers too, but they were out for blood, absolute blood, the day after. You know what I'm saying? Like they were going to rain hell down on that entire city. Now that's when you're talking about holding back the dogs from going scorched earth and annihilating everything.
Yeah.
You had a whole Ranger battalion and you had like 4 Delta squadrons. They wanted to annihilate that entire city into nothing.
Right.
Now,
especially after what happened with Sugar and Gordon, that's why.
Now, from a profile perspective, is that the sociopath perspective, or have they gone full, psychopath or whatever at that point?
No, they're sociopaths still, because they were able to. They didn't just go out and do it anyway. They were able to. You can hold on to that motivation, but apply it in a logical and practical way.
Got it.
But be methodical, be practical, be logical about it. Yeah, you have your feelings. You feel what you feel about it, but that doesn't mean you're gonna go out and do it.
And manifest it. Yeah. I got
it.
Yeah. We're gonna wind down the show now. Mandrell, again, first of all, you owe us a part 2. We said a time ago we had you on. You owe us a part 2, so we can get more into. I want to hear more of these stories that you're talking about. So again, we definitely need to set that up soon to have you back on for part 2 of your interview here in the gray area. And again, if you want to talk about the boxing scene, Wednesday, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard, make yourself available for that. If you're going to be on, I'll create a block for you. We can talk about all the drama that's always in boxing, but at the same time, it wouldn't be boxing if there wasn't drama. So,
right.
That's true.
So I wouldn't, so definitely looking forward to that conversation. But any final thoughts, certainly before we wrap up the show?
Yeah, let me throw
Mandrell, last point you want to make before we get out of here? Yeah,
people, I've done so in my absence. I've been back and forth to Washington and Langley. So I'll say about where I've been and what I'm doing. That's all I'm gonna say. Whatever you're thinking this administration is doing or is about, whatever it is, however bad you're imagining that it is, I'm telling you from firsthand information, it is far worse than you think. That BS. Now Joe Kent, he resigned, as you know. I've known Joe Kent since the early 2000s. He was a Green Beret in 5th Group. I was in 7th Group, but I've known him since then. I actually know him personally. I knew he was going to retire. I just couldn't say anything. I wasn't allowed to,
Right.
I knew she was coming too. Now, this BS excuse she gives about why my husband has cancer. Yeah, he does, but that ain't why. She's had her whole political career talking about no war against Iran. But then we're in there. We were just waiting on her to leave because we knew it was coming. She had no choice.
Yeah.
Otherwise, she's a big hypocrite and all that. But Memorial Day, people, please, you see a veteran, don't be callous and don't take this whole thing where you signed up for it. Come on. What do you mean when you signed up for it? Yeah, he did sign up for it. Yeah, she signed up for it. You know what I'm saying? But show a little gratitude, for people who did volunteer to do that. And then they're coming back to tell you, hey, listen, this is difficult. These are the issues I'm having here. Okay, that person might need a little help or advice. You don't know what your advice might do for that person. 22 of us commit suicide per day. Per day. Ask yourself, what's causing that? And if you can give them some words of encouragement, if that's all you have to offer, give them that. You might not be able to give them 50 cents. Cool. But say, hey, look, I appreciate you. I appreciate your service. That goes a long way for a lot of people. Just the acknowledgement can be enough for a lot of us. If you have a relative who's a veteran and they call you, do your best to pick up every time, because you just don't know where that person's mental state is. Mm-hmm. We come back, and for myself, I know one of the motivating factors of even considering suicide was the feeling of worthlessness. What's my purpose now? That's one reason why I work so much. I have to keep moving. That's why I have the hobbies that I have. I was at a range yesterday shooting guns. I do MMA. I keep moving because I have to give myself a purpose now. But you take a warrior and give him no war to fight. What's he left to do? Mm-hmm. Either he's going to implode or explode. Imploding is the drug use, the drinking, because once all the war stops, you got plenty of time, nothing but time to drink, drug, and soak in some of the decisions that you question and feel guilty about. And that's where the suicide comes in. Other than that, they explode. You see some people doing wild stuff all the time. Mm-hmm. But the thing is, you're walking around acting scared of us, when all it really takes is say, hey, I care. Or I'm sorry, or thank you for your service. It could be something that simple that just pulls them back off the edge. Veterans are nothing to be afraid of. They just need to know that you give a shit.
Yeah.
Simple as.
Absolutely. Appreciate that.
No problem.
Anton, final thoughts on your...
My final thoughts is basically picking back off.
Think you're breaking up again, sir.
Sometimes talking to them, just give them something small to buddy check, takes them off that ledge. One of the things that my town does for around this time is a good number of the streets also has the name of veterans who grew up on that street who died in combat. Whether it was World War II, World War I, Korea, Vietnam, Desert Storm. They put a red and white blue ribbon and a flag. If you get a chance, look those people up. Read their stories. If you see the buntings on the main street of where you live with their names and their faces and the years they were in service, look them up. Read their stories. Because you'd be surprised how much you realize what these individuals have done and accomplished. If you get a chance to use Google instead of for searching for likes and everything else on social media, just talk to a veteran. Talk to him, talk to her. Buy them a drink or something. Something that you appreciate what they've done, that they were willing to do and chose to do that you wouldn't do. That's it. And sometimes just ask, are you okay? And I've done that to a lot of other veterans I've ran into, just to check on them. You all right, buddy? And sometimes those little things will help them feel a whole lot better. So, other than the barbecuing and the hanging out with your kids and all that other stuff, take your time to talk to a veteran that you may know or a veteran you may not know, and just say thank you and let them know if they're okay. And that's about it. That's all I got to say. Some words we're thinking about.
Awesome. Pete, take us out.
I'm going to take a book out of CQ's when he was on here last time. Ask them their story. They'd be more than happy to share their story, because every single veteran has a story to share. And if you really want to know what these guys go through overseas during a combat, during a deployment, during their whatever, watch The Outpost. I am dead serious. That is the closest thing you're going to see. And I'm speaking as a civilian. I asked multiple people, my buddy CQ, King, and all these guys. That is the movie was so closest to more reality than anything else. And just if you guys have a family member or friend who's fallen, just go visit them. Trust me. It will mean more than anything to them.
Absolutely. Well, again, I know this has been, like I said, a holiday version of the gray area. We went way over our normal time, but again, hopefully you guys, certainly with the holiday, you guys have some time off, but again, time to certainly enjoy with your families and whatnot. But certainly, we are in a privileged situation, and we have certainly people to thank for that. And so again, we appreciate all our veterans, whether you were in the theater of combat or whether you were in an administrative role, whatever you did to support the soldiers of our military. All that needs to be respected. And for those who certainly voluntarily did so, certainly we appreciate you guys also. But we're just going to ask that again, make sure you hit the like button, certainly as you leave tonight. Join us next week on the show. Next week, we're going to be talking about the rise and fall of big business. So again, if you've been watching a lot of YouTube as of late, we've seen some major companies that were in the billions that are either no longer with us anymore, or they have, shrunken drastically. And a lot of it comes down to certain decisions and whatnot. So this was always an area that I found fascinating over the last few months as I started finding this content. And I figured I'd want to pick it up here. So when we talk about, again, the rise and fall of big business, and, have that as a topic. So certainly join us next week on the show as we talk about those sort of things. And join us in 3 shows after that for our next call-in show. Again, we do one once a month, and, so we'll look forward to that content. So certainly for myself, Mr. Bennett, for Anton, for Mandrell, again, thank you for making time for us. Always appreciate it. You always got a welcome seat here, sir. And for our guy,
This is Sparta!
the Ghost of Sparta, a.k.a. Peter, a.k.a. Panayotis, Cowboy, Soldier.
AKA
Next week we'll find out what the next hat he has on next week. But certainly, my part, I couldn't do the show without him, and really appreciate everything that we've been able to do. I mean, I've lost count of how long we've been doing this. I think we're on our 3rd season now of doing this.
Yeah. 3 years.
It's crazy how the time flies, man. But certainly, I think we've grown. I think our audience has certainly grown, and certainly the numbers are reflecting that. And we just enjoy doing this. So as long as you guys enjoy the content, we'll keep doing it. And we appreciate you guys being with us. So again, enjoy the rest of your holiday week. Certainly for us, take care. God bless, and we'll see you next time. Good night.